Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Pika Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Ash Ketchum raised by Kukui. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Professor Kukui, I'd like to thank you for allowing my son to stay with you while he attends the Pokemon school. I know this will be a fantastic opportunity for him and I think it will be a lot of fun. However, there are a few things about my boy that I should have addressed with you sooner, but I didn't want to say it in front of Satoshi Ash. I just couldn't find a moment to say it. My son was always a happy and outgoing boy, but something has been very off lately. It's like he's built a wall around himself. Once he returned home from his journey in Kalos, something seemed off. No matter what I would do, he was quiet and distant. Usually once a journey ended he would just keep going and move on to the next region and the next Pokemon League. But this time he didn't leave the house. Actually, he hardly left his bed. There were days where Pikachu would have to come downstairs to get his food, and even then most meals ended up getting cold. He wouldn't even agree to go see all his Pokemon waiting to see him at Professor Oak's. He always would visit them once he returned, but this time was different. I saw him drop his 3 flying Pokemon off at the professor's before going right home to his bed. He wouldn't even go outside when his old friends would visit. He would say he wasn't feeling well and hole himself back up in his room. Although he has been all smiles this entire vacation, I am not sure how long it will last. If he becomes too much of a handful, feel free to send him back on home. I don't expect you to have to deal with whatever's going on if it is too much. I am his mother after all. Thanks again. Hanako, Delia. Kukui eyed the letter Delia had quickly scrawled on a napkin in interest. It had been a few days since he had arrived. So far, Ash hadn't displayed any of that kind of behavior. Though he supposed it was something to keep an eye on, so far he had gone over some basic house rules with the Cantonian boy and his Pikachu, and he agreed to help out with chores around the house and such. He had been nothing but respectful, though he did seem a little tense. He always ate every last bite of the meals prepared for him and seemed to enjoy it greatly. Rockruff seemed to be ecstatic about the new guest, and Ash seemed to greatly enjoy his company as well. Hey! A voice startled Kukui out of his thoughts. Rotom did a quick spin while doing a calculation. My data shows this is incorrect. Turtwig cannot learn the move Dig. Ash chuckled a bit. It's just a TV show, Rotom, it's fiction. Well, it could be at least a bit more realistic. Don't want trainers to get any misconceptions about the capabilities of their Turtwig. Rotom crossed his arms. I dunno, I actually think that any Pokemon can learn a move they don't usually learn if they put their mind to it. My Bulbasaur actually learned how to use Dig. Rotom seemed to almost glitch. Impossible. But it is. Ash grinned. She learned it to save some other Pokemon during a land dispute. She's an extraordinary Pokemon. I won't believe it until I see it. Rotom huffed. Alright then, guess I'll just have to show you if you ever visit Kanto with me, the boy shrugged. Ash was currently sitting on the couch, quietly petting Pikachu and watching the television while Rowlet napped above them, with Rotom viewing the show in interest. Kukui looked down at his feet to find Rockruff papping his leg with his paw, begging for the still unfinished meal he was preparing. Not yet, Rockruff, he sighed, petting the Pokemon on the head before returning to his vegetables. Once the meal was finally done, he sat down with the boy and his Pokemon and ate. The Pokemon ate like they were as hungry as ever. Ash seemed happy to eat the meal as well. Once finished, he collected all the Pokemon's bowls on top of his, placed them in the sink, thanked Kukui for the meal and climbed up into the loft area he'd been given. Rotom and Pikachu followed. Rowlet remained snoozing on the couch. The professor looked at the time. It was a bit early to head to bed. He heard the springs of the bed creaking as the boy laid down. He looked up towards the loft. Hey Ash, it's only 8 p.m. That's a bit early for a 14-year-old to go to bed. He had a light chuckle in his voice. Want to come down and watch a movie or play a board game? Brown Eyes gazed down from the loft area. Oh no, I'm okay. Besides, you probably have professor things to do, or stuff to prepare for class tomorrow. I wouldn't want to overstep my boundaries. Kukui paused, a bit puzzled by Ash's words. Of course not, Ash. Why would you be overstepping any boundaries by playing a game I invited you to join? He stood and walked towards a cabinet, opening it to reveal many board games. Besides, I have my lesson plans ready months in advance and I don't really work in the evenings unless it's Pokemon professor things rather than school work. The boy frowned and visibly swallowed. Okay. He climbed down the ladder, Pikachu on his shoulder. He had changed into his bed shirt, one that he insisted that Kukui didn't have to buy for him. Though the professor insisted, especially since Ash only had a few days' worth of clothes with him. He walked over to the couch and sat down, looking much more tense than before. The professor pulled out a long rectangular box. How about some Jenga? Alright, a curt nod accompanied by a rapidly shaking leg. Kukui gave him a warm smile and set up the tower. Pikachu joined the game too, while Rockruff settled on watching and Rotom insisted on recording the event. A block was carefully pulled out of the tower and placed on top. Pikachu followed Kukui's example, carefully pulling out a different one and placing it atop as well, standing on his toes to reach well enough. Pika, the electric mouse, cheered at his victory before turning towards his trainer. Alright. Ash picked a block with a slightly shaky hand, slowly sliding it out and placing it on top. He'd let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding as the tower only shook a bit but didn't fall to the ground. Kukui went once more, then Pikachu. Then it was Ash once more. He inhaled sharply, slowly taking the block and placing it atop, seeming far too relieved that the tower didn't collapse. The cycle continued, Kukui, Pikachu, and a very tense Ash. Until it all came crashing down. Ash seemed to be frozen at first, just gazing at the destroyed tower. But then suddenly curtly stood up. Okay, game over, good night. He scaled the ladder to the loft in record time. Kukui looked at the time, though it was only 8:40, he supposed he should get ready for bed himself. His chest had a strange anxious feeling in it as he cleaned up the game and put it away, before retiring to his own bedroom. It was around midnight when he had heard hacking down the hallway. He yawned and slid out of bed, assuming Rockruff had gone and eaten something it wasn't supposed to again. His bare feet padded out into the hallway as he followed the sounds to the bathroom. He blinked some more sleep out of his eyes. That was strange. How did Rockruff get in there? He was so sure he'd closed the door before he'd retired for the night. He went to turn the knob but froze as he heard a voice. Pikachu. Pika. I'm K. promised Ash. Pikapi. At the Pokemon's concerned shout, Kukui turned the doorknob and threw the door open. Ash was sitting on his knees, hunched to the ground. His eyes were glazed over with some sort of haze. The room reeked of vomit. It dripped a bit from his mouth as he coughed and hacked. Ash? The boy suddenly jerked, just then noticing the professor. His eyes filled with tears. He began to spurt out words, Urushite. The tears built up and his eyes flowed down his cheeks. The professor pondered the word for a moment, pulling up his Cantonese that he'd learned ages ago. Why are you apologizing? I'm so terrible. I am making a mess of it all. I tried to be happy, I really did. His breath caught. He puked once more in the toilet. He let out a broken sob. He let out a few more cries before suddenly standing up and using what seemed to be all he had to run out of the bathroom and straight towards the front door. Kukui followed quickly. Hey. Where are you going? I'm sorry. I'll go sleep outside. I'm not a good housemate, sir, he quickly explained, opening the screen door. Pikapi. Ash. You can't just go sleep outside, it's cold out. Kukui caught up with him. I've done it before. Almost every day in my last journey. I'm okay. He went to open the door but Kukui blocked the way. No. You are not. Why are you apologizing? Why do you feel like you have sleep outside? Ash hugged himself a bit. I told you, sir, I'm disgusting and terrible and I'm a bad dash. Hey, no you're not. You aren't bad in any way, shape or form. You were sick, that doesn't make you disgusting. It happens. Not every night, Ash hiccuped. Ash, why didn't you tell me? I knew you'd think I was disgusting. Tears continued to flow. Kukui took a breath. Satoshi, hey, he placed a sturdy hand on the boy's shoulder. I don't think that at all. Come on, he stood, let's get you out of that shirt. Satoshi sniffled, wiping at his brown eyes. Sorry I ruined it. Kukui walked him to the laundry room. You didn't ruin anything, bud. He took the shirt from the boy who suddenly seemed to be much smaller than he usually carried himself. The stained shirt was tossed in the wash and the boy was given one of Kukui's old bed shirts for the time being. Satoshi muttered a small arigato. Kinishinade. Kukui patted him on the head as he led the boy out into the living room. He motioned for him to sit down beside him. Pikachu pulled a blanket over to his trainer as Satoshi sat down, hugging his knees to his chest. Kukui put on a simple comedy show, though neither of them really paid much attention to it. Satoshi, how long has this been going on? Since I got to Alola. Kukui perked up. Have you been sick this whole time? Sorta. Ts not contagious though, he pet Pikachu's head. I had trouble eating back home, and I wanted to seem like I was okay. And I didn't want to be rude so I just ate it all, though the amount of food in even just normal meals have been making me sick. Every night, he hugged Pikachu close. I saw the letter my mom wrote. I want to stay here, so I have to make myself okay. Please professor, I don't want you to get rid of me. I'll try harder to be better. I'll get better, I promise. I dash. Satoshi. Hey, Kukui placed a hand on the boy's shoulder once more. Pikapi. Pikachu nuzzled into his trainer's chest. It's okay, I'm not gonna send you away. You don't deserve to be sent away, buddy, he sighed. Can you tell me something you can see? I see, your glasses. Good job, bud, he smiled warmly. How about something you can hear? The TV. Nice job, Satoshi. Now how about something you can feel? Satoshi scritched Pikachu under his chin. Pikachu. How does Pikachu feel? The professor asked. Soft and warm, he sniffled a bit. Chew. Pikachu nuzzled impossibly closer to his best friend. Satoshi's chest still had trouble settling as he breathed, it would hitch as he exhaled. Are you okay with a hug? Kukui asked, holding open his arms. I'd actually really like that. He let himself melt into the embrace as the sniffling died down. Kukui rubbed the boy's back as he quieted down. Once his breathing had evened out, he looked up at Kukui. You know, you don't have to call me Satoshi. I use Ash to make it easier for people from other places. Well, I enjoy the name Satoshi, it really suits you, Sato. He ruffled up the boy's already messy hair. Okay, thank you, Professor, I really do like my name, but you can call me Ash around my friends. Kukui chuckled. Can do. Also just call me Kukui. Being called sir in my own home feels a bit strange, he offered a grin. Alright. Satoshi seemed the most relaxed Kukui had ever seen him, a sort of relief in his eyes that were getting droopy with the need for slumber. Okay, I think it's time for bed, the professor smiled. MMNMPH, Sato made a tired noise as he pulled out of the embrace, picking up Pikachu. He walked back over to the loft, Pikachu on his shoulder. Hey, Sato. Yeah, the trainer turned back to Kukui, rubbing his tired eyes. Let me know the next time something's wrong, I'm happy to help. Thank you, Kukui. Of course, he stood and turned off the TV, ready to get back to bed himself. He heard the bed from the loft creaking as he closed his door, he sighed, looking at the clock. 2 a.m. He'd have to cancel class tomorrow, for both he and Satoshi's sake. The moonlight filtered through the window and shined on his bed. His head stirred with thoughts, but he knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't leave that boy alone. Satoshi seemed to have curled in on himself as he, Kukui, and Sophocles walked to dinner. God, somehow he'd forgotten how bad the mess he'd made was. He hoped the professor wasn't too mad at him. He scratched at his arm, he hoped that the professor wouldn't embarrass him by bringing it up in front of Sophocles. Why else would he offer to bring him out to eat? That was something his mom would do sometimes, right in front of his friends. The chilly Alolan evening air blew through his black hair as he could feel Rowlet snoozing in his backpack. He found himself hugging Pikachu to his chest with a bit of anxiety as the professor made simple small talk with his classmate. The walk to the restaurant seemed to take hours and only a few minutes, somehow at the same time. Upon entering, Mallow's father waved to them in a friendly manner, inviting the three to sit down. It wasn't long before Mallow arrived with menus and a few new drinks on the menu. On the house, she chirped. As she dashed off to fill other tables' orders, Kukui and Sophocles laughed about something Satoshi didn't quite catch. Arceus, he sure was anxious. What do you think, Ash? Sophocles was suddenly turned towards him, Togedemaru chirping about whatever they had been talking about. Sure. Ash laughed a bit nervously. About what? Sophocles raised a confused eyebrow. Ash forced a smile and a little laugh out. Haha. Sorry. What were you asking about? Whether we should get the oran berry, or the lum berry surprise for dessert. Kukui offered with a light grin. Oh. That. Yeah. I thought you meant the other thing. What, dash? I'd say lumberry sounds good to me. Rolette's favorite. Mine too, heh. A smile spread across Sophocles' face. Oh, alright. Cool. So how was your day, boys? Seems to me there is quite a story to tell. He turned to Ash and the boy tensed. It was fun in a weird way, but still fun. We got a bit stressed in the mall, but we worked together and pulled through. Sophocles excitedly rattled off as Togedemaru squeaked with joy. Pikachu. Pika. Satoshi looked down to see his Pokemon cooing at him from his lap. In response, he placed his hand atop the yellow mouse's head and scritched the fur atop it. Kaya! Pikachu's ears drooped down as he relaxed in Sato's lap. The boy allowed himself to chill a little too. The Pokemon sitting in his lap was grounding enough to help him through the meal despite his anxieties. Oh, wonderful! Kukui responded with a light-hearted chuckle still in his voice. It wasn't long before Mallow returned to take their orders. Sophocles ordered a bigger-looking meal for he and Togedemaru, and Kukui ordered a meal that seemed modest, but still filling. Satoshi found himself silent. What could he get? Ash. Satoshi jumped at Kukui's voice. Are you okay? Why yeah. Yup. All good. I'll have a this. He pointed to something random on the menu and passed it back to Mallow. Oh. Alright. Coming right up, she grinned at her friends and teacher before dashing off again to fill some more orders, Bounsweet by her side. Ash bit his cheek and placed a hand on Rolette's head. Don't even think about it. Rolette's feathers ruffled as he accepted that he wouldn't be following the sweet scent. Soon the meals were delivered and eaten, though Satoshi found himself taking most of it home. The portion sizes were a bit big for his still delicate stomach. They walked Sophocles home, but as they waved goodbye to the boy, a new anxiety bubbled in his chest. The walk back to Kukui's was silent. Satoshi could only imagine subdued anger. He had trashed the professor's home after all. He waited, and waited, and waited. It didn't happen though. Step by step, minute by minute they had walked until the door to the house was swung open. Oh, right. Kukui chuckled. I'd completely forgotten what a mess everything was. His hand reached back to rub his neck. Sato blinked. The professor sounded oddly casual. Well then we'd better get to work, huh? He winked at the boy, walking into a small closet off of the kitchen. He pulled out a mop. You already cleaned up a lot of them, but there's still a ways to go. How about we work together to deal with those suds in the laundry room? Okay. Satoshi's voice was small. A slight frown fell upon Kukui's face. Are you okay, Satoshi? He turned towards the boy. I'm okay, just I am confused. What about? Kukui raised an eyebrow. I literally, he looked around him, trashed your house. How are you not mad at me? I was scared you were gonna embarrass me in front of Sophocles at dinner. Why would I do that? He genuinely asked. Well, once when I was 9, my mom left me home alone to do some chores while she was out for the day and I had completely destroyed her garden. She was super passive-aggressive all day, but then, later that day she lashed out on me in front of my friend Gary. He swallowed. She was having a stressful day and I don't think it was her plan to lash out then, but she was pretty upset with me, though it wasn't the first time she'd done it. Kukui looked concerned. Did she apologize later? Yeah, but it still felt like a punishment in the end. Pikachu hugged his trainer's leg. Sato, I would never embarrass you like that, and I'm not mad at you. A grin grew on his lips. Really, I find it kind of funny how much damage you managed to do. Didn't you ever do laundry before? Nope, Satoshi smiled a bit. I would always watch my mom but never did it myself. Not to mention on journeys I would be in charge of drying the laundry on a clothesline. Not washing it. And I have never cooked either. I always had someone else in my group that could cook, so they would always do the cooking. He shrugged. Well, that all makes sense now. Kukui laughed. I have made similar mistakes before. The first time I did the dishes with a dishwasher, I poured a bunch of dish soap in the compartment. I left to let it wash, and when I came back the entire kitchen was overwhelmed with suds. He chuckled. Kahuna Hala had me spend the rest of the day cleaning it up. Satoshi chuckled as the mop was handed to him. Don't worry, I'll help you out though. After much scrubbing and mopping from the efforts of Kukui, Sato, Rotom, Rolette, Rockruff, and Pikachu, though the Pokémon spent more time sliding along the suds like a slip and slide. The room was squeaky clean. After they had said their goodnights to each other, Satoshi laid awake in his bed, looking up to the ceiling with a perplexed expression. Pika! Pikachu perked up, resting his head on his trainer's belly, and to Satoshi's surprise Rolette flapped his wings as well to land on his bed frame with a coo. I'm okay guys, he exhaled. Pikachu poked him in the face. Satoshi sighed. It's not that big of a deal, Pikachu. Flapping wings were heard and bird-like feet grabbed onto Satoshi's hair. Row. Pika. Fine. Sato groaned. I'll talk about my feelings. He sat up a bit, pulling Pikachu to his lap, and coaxing Rolette off his head. I don't know why my brain works like this. Before my last journey, when things went wrong I would brush them off easy. I could handle any problem the world threw at me. But now, he hung his head, just screwing up some DMN laundry made me think the professor hated me. He sniffed. Something is very wrong with me and I don't know how to fix it. Pika-Pichu. The electric type nuzzled his trainer. Pikachu, Satoshi smiled a bit. Ruru. Rolette cooed, beginning to affectionately preen through his trainer's hair. Thanks guys, I know, I will get better, I promise. He yawned and stretched a bit, laying back down with Pikachu settling on his chest, and Rolette in the crook of his neck. He found rest easy with the warm Pokemon beside him. Kukui enjoyed Mondays. A lot of people would scoff at the idea, but it's true. He got to teach the kids in the class a new thing about Pokemon and they would all excitedly participate. They brought up interesting viewpoints and grew in their skills and knowledge about Pokemon every single day. It warmed his heart to also see the friendships formed between all of them. Though they were aged from 11 to 15 years old, they all hung out together and considered each other friends. Kukui looked at the clock. Satoshi was very late for class. He had waited a while to begin, but it would be lunch soon without teaching a single thing, so he figured he would begin the lesson without Satoshi. Perhaps he had gotten sidetracked by a wild Pokemon. It wouldn't be the first time. He turned his back to the class and began to write the types of Pokemon on the board when the entire class gasped, Lily exclaiming, "Oh my!" He turned towards the class and followed their eyes to the doorway where Ash stood, breathing heavily. I made it. His arms and face were covered in scratches, some had blood slowly seeping out. He rushed over to his seat and looked at the board. Oh cool. Type advantages. Am I too late? Kukui looked at him ridiculously. Class dismissed for lunch. Satoshi seemed to deflate at his words but nonetheless grabbed his lunch out of his backpack as the rest of the class surrounded him. However, before they could get a word with him, Kukui interrupted. Ash, buddy, let's talk for a second in the hall. Oh, okay. He grabbed his lunch and waved goodbye to everyone as he followed the professor into the hallway. Sorry for being so late, I know being on time is important. Forget being on time, Satoshi, what happened? You are covered in scratches. Kukui grabbed a first aid kit off from the wall and motioned for him to sit down on a bench. Sato complied and sat down. Well, I met that Litten again, you know, the one who is always at the market with that nice lady. He winced as Kukui cleaned up his worst cuts, and she was really nice to me, got all close and cuddly, she even nuzzled into my hand. I figured she must have been hungry, so I wanted to share a little piece of my sandwich with her, and well, he opened up his lunch, revealing the small nibble that remained of his sandwich. I gave her an inch and she took a mile. Kukui snorted a bit. Yeah, that's a common thing with that Litten. He continued to tend to Satoshi's wounds. Yeah, I ended up chasing her to avenge my croquette sandwich. He dramatically shook his fist. It looked so yummy. I'll make you another tomorrow. Kukui chuckled, putting away the medical materials and heading back to the classroom, Satoshi in tow. You can have half of mine for now. Thanks, Professor. Satoshi chuckled. He took the offered half of the sandwich and ran back over to talk to his friends about what had given him his scratches. Litfu, the red and black Pokemon, whacked at the obstruction around her head. Don't pick at it, Litten. You'll mess up your bandages, that Persian really roughed you up. Tata, the cat Pokemon, snorted a couple sparks. Pika. It was hard to keep from laughing. Litten really did look ridiculous in the Heliolisk collar. Kukui watched as Satoshi played nice with the injured Litten while he put away dinner. From the looks of it, it wasn't very effective, but that didn't mean Satoshi's move had no effect at all. He'd gotten to the point of coaxing Litten onto his lap. The cat-like Pokemon had even felt comfortable enough to fall asleep on his lap, unconsciously purring, lulling everyone but Rotom to sleep in a big cuddle pile around Satoshi. The outlier was still wide awake, intently watching the latest episode of Alolan Detective Locky, muting their volume so their exclamations wouldn't disturb their sleeping friend. Eventually even Rotom had retired to their charger for the night. Kukui switched off the television, making sure not to disturb Satoshi and his new friend on his lap. Pikachu curled up at his side and Rowlet snoozing on top of the couch near his head. The next morning, however, had the opposite vibes of the night prior. Things were still calm but with a tone of sadness layered atop. Satoshi had entered his room far earlier than he usually awoke, and shook Kukui awake gently. Professor, sorry to bother you, but I need to tell you something about Litten. Kukui rubbed his eyes. Is she hurt? Did she disturb her wounds? No, but I found out why she fought so hard over that one little berry. Kukui sat up and listened to Satoshi tell him all about how he had followed the Pokemon all the way to its home, and met the Stoutland who the Litten stayed with. Kukui got up and prepared for the day as Satoshi told him what he planned to do. I think that's a wonderful idea. Kukui smiled. I won't be able to come along, but I am sure your gift will be greatly appreciated. Yeah. Awesome. Satoshi laughed a bit, grabbing his bag. The market doesn't open for a bit, but I'll go there after a quick run with my Pokemon. Pikachu pumped his fist in the air, Rowlet gave a drowsy coo, and Rotom floated behind him. Let's go! Without a chance for Kukui to say anything more, the young trainer dashed out the door. There was just no stopping Satoshi. Sato would admit that he felt sad, walking away with bags packed with berries. However, there was some hope and happiness inside of him. Alola, the lady at the market, had given him some lovely advice that he really took to heart. Pika, Pikachu hopped alongside him. I'll be good, buddy. He held out his arm for Pikachu to use as leverage to climb up. I felt before like Litten was sort of abandoning me. Yeah, he stopped and leaned against a brick wall that faced one of Mele's beaches. Pikapi. But now I know that Litten does what she does because she has others to care for. She's not abandoning me at all. Just like Marie said, it's not my fault and it's nothing that I did. He scratched under Pikachu's chin, because I didn't do anything wrong. He offered Pikachu a pineapple berry, who gobbled it up in response, Rowlet getting an orange berry to munch on. Chupika! Pikachu shouted, swishing his tail. Sato chuckled, grabbing his bags and almost hopping forwards. Pikachu, you validate me. Pika! Ruh! Yes, Rowlet, you too. The Pokemon snuggled into his bag with content. As Satoshi walked home, he figured that though he may have had a full bag of berries, that doesn't mean he has an empty heart. Lily sat on her bed, kicking her feet a little bit, a shy smile tugging at her lips. Her eyes glancing here and there at the egg on the couch, moving a little bit from time to time. She was nervous about it at first but soon felt confident that all the pillows and blankets would keep the egg from crashing to the ground no matter how much it shook. "You are doing an amazing job with the egg so far." Ash plopped down on the bed next to the blonde girl, Mallow laying behind them reading the book Lily had picked out earlier. Her feet hung in the air, one occasionally falling back onto the bed. "Thank you, Ash, I'm doing my best to raise the egg until it hatches all happy and healthy." She hugged her Clefairy plush to her chest. Ash looked at the plush with interest. "Hey Lily, you sure do have a lot of plushies." He glanced at the shelf that held many more. She blushed a little. "Why yeah, I guess I do." She walked over and grabbed her Eevee from her shelf. "I guess for me it was the next best thing to Pokemon since I couldn't touch them anymore, so I just kept on getting more and more of them. Though I have had this Clefairy plush since I was a baby." She smiled a bit, petting its head. "I don't play with them as much anymore though. I used to have all sorts of tea parties with them." She looked towards her friends but quickly looked away, her face flushing embarrassed. "But it's stupid to even think about She hugged her plush. "Well, I think it's a great idea." Satoshi grinned, standing up. "How about we grab all the plushies we can find and have a giant tea party?" "Ah really?" Lily was taken aback. "Yeah. It sounds like a great idea to me." Mallow added in, closing the book on eggs. "Oh, alright." Lily looked around. There should be a folding table in the closet out in the hall. "On it." Ash grinned, running over to grab it. Mallow grabbed a few more plushies. "I've got the party guests," she giggled. Lily found her shoulders relaxing a bit as she opened up a cabinet in the corner of her room, pulling out an old-looking basket. It was decorated with a lovely blue ribbon and a gemstone was atop the golden lock. She took the key which was placed right beside the basket, and opened it up. Ash returned with the table and with Mallow's help, got it stable and standing as Lily placed the basket in the center of the table, carefully taking out the glassware inside. A lovely teapot was the centerpiece. Smaller teacups were visible around it and little plate with neatly painted designs were in small neat stacks as well in the corners. "Oh wait," Lily pursed her lips, "I forgot all about the tea. Would Hobbs make some for us?" Mallow suggested. "Of course he would. I mean." Lily looked away a bit, rocking on her feet. "Awesome." Mallow clasped her hands together. "Let's go then." She grabbed Lily's hand and gently pulled her out into the hall, followed by Ash and every single Pokemon in the room. Aside from the egg of course. Mallow's eyes quickly spotted the butler. "Excuse me Hobbs." "Yes young Mallow?" he asked, turning his attention from his sweeping. "We'd like you to make us some tea please." Ash joined Mallow, leaning against the railing. "Oh how lovely, may I ask what for?" He raised an eyebrow. Lily appeared, a nothing too impo dash. "A tea party." Mallow took Lily's hand. A smile appeared on Hobbs' face. "Oh, how lovely. I will prepare it right away. How does mint sound?" A comforting hand squeezed Lily's. "Sounds lovely, thank you." Hobbs placed the teapot on the table. "Oh it's just so lovely seeing you having tea parties again." Lily blushed a little, making sure the egg was seated comfortably on her lap. "It's gonna be so much fun." Ash held his teacup with his pinky out, Pikachu imitating him. The sight made Lily giggle. She pulled a bun out of the basket Hobbs had prepared as well. "Okay then. Bon appetit." As they ate they watched all the Pokemon playing outside. "They are really cute, aren't they?" Mallow took a bit of her bun. "Yeah, they look like they're having tons of fun on the playground." Ash watched as the wild Pokemon hung on the monkey bars, and went down the slide. "My favorite part of the playground was always the sandbox," Mallow mused. "I would always go digging for treasure. I loved the merry-go-round. You would get on after you picked up the momentum and go spinning. Fast like a quick attack. It's the best kind of head rush." Pikachu agreed with Ash's statement, a nod and a Pika. "Well, I always loved the swings." Lily mused. "I would close my eyes, or just look upwards and it would feel like I was flying like a toucan." She smiled, a hand on the egg. "It was a lot of fun." "Well who says it's gotta stop?" Ash stood, turning to Rotom. "Hey Rotom, where's the nearest park with stuff big enough for us to play on?" Rotom's face held up some data as they calculated. Well there is a park right near Professor Kukui's house. It has equipment for children aged 7 to 10, but it would fit you all." "You're the best Rotom." Mallow grinned ear to ear. Wait but what about the egg?" Lily hugged it to her chest. Ash smiled at the image. "We can ask the professor to egg sit. He wouldn't mind at all I'm sure." Lily bit her lip. "Only if you are absolutely sure." A light hand was placed on her shoulder. "Hey, why not just try and see what he says, and if he says he can't, then we can ask my dad. He just can't say no to me." Lily looked up at Mallow's reassuring grin. "Oh, okay then, try." Soon enough the tea was finished and the buns eaten until not even crumbs remained, courtesy of Roulette. Hobbs took them in the car, all the way to Kukui's home. Upon arrival, Ash ran up to the house and threw the door open, shouting, "Professor, I'm back. Can you help us out with something?" Kukui let out a yelp from the basement. "Satoshi? Why are you home so early? Is everything all right?" Ash raised an eyebrow. The professor sounded a bit nervous. "I'm all good, are you all right?" His footsteps creaked as he walked down the stairs. "Cookie," the professor uttered as Satoshi entered the basement. "Kukui?" Sato questioned, confused. Why would the professor say sky and sea out of nowhere like that? Kukui looked a bit frazzled, a pokeball in his hand, and his other hand behind his back. "Professor?" "Yes, Sato." He used the hand with the pokeball in it to pull his lab coat tighter around him. "Right, we were wondering if you could exit while Lily, Mallow, and I hang out at the park nearby?" "Sure thing." A drop of sweat slowly fell down his forehead. "Right, okay, thanks Kukui." Sato waved, climbing back up the stairs. Lily and Mallow were seated in the living room, Mallow scritching Rockruff's neck. Both seemed to be listening intently to Rotom's explanation as to why Alolan Detective Locky was in fact the biggest masterpiece ever aired in the history of television. Satoshi pointed towards the stairway. "He'll be up in just a minute." "Great!" Lily exclaimed, till clutching the egg gently. "Though one thing did confuse me." He tapped his chin. "What's that?" Lily asked. "Well," Satoshi crossed his arms, "when I started walking down the stairs he yelled the Cantonese word for sky and sea, Kukai, no idea why." Lily blushed and Mallow snorted. "You may have misheard that, Ash." "What do you mean?" "Well, he probably said, Lily blushed harder, Cookie. The Alolan word for sheet." Mallow said matter-of-factly. Satoshi almost choked on a laugh at the realization. What was he doing down there anyhow? "Not sure." Sato shrugged. He had a pokeball in his hand and was holding something behind his back. Lily mused. Maybe a surprise party? Or some secret Pokemon research? Sato clenched his fists with excitement. Or he was just doing a hobby he doesn't like others to see. "My dad doesn't know that I know he sneaks down into the basement to cosplay at night." "You think he cosplays?" Lily asked. "Maybe." Mallow shrugged. "Whose pokeball was it?" "Not sure." Satoshi trailed off. "In all honesty, I haven't seen too much of the professor's Pokemon other than Rockruff, and he's wild." "Interesting," Mallow thought. "Maybe it is a research thing then." Kukui walked up the stairs, looking much more put together. "You three said you needed an egg sitter?" If you wouldn't mind." Lily stood with the egg safely nestled in her arms. "Of course. You guys go have fun." He offered his arms out and took the egg from Lily. "Thanks, Professor." Satoshi called, running out the door, Mallow and Lily in tow. Pikachu ran ahead, knowing the route to the park well as they'd passed it. Often in outings and excursions. First they had to pass the potion shop, then turn right at the end of the road, after that take a shortcut through a small forest of trees before, there. Sato pointed towards an area with swings that would make them soar, a merry-go-round that would surely make them sick from spinning, and a big metal slide that would definitely burn them thanks to the beating Alolan sun. Ash hopped on a swing, followed by Lily, and Mallow next to the blonde. Ash swung his legs to get as high as possible, the wind flowing through his hair. Once high enough he let go, letting himself fly a bit before landing a distance from his starting point. He marked the sand. "Yeah. That's a good one. Pika." Pikachu gave him a fist bump. "Me next." Mallow picked up momentum herself before tossing herself off, landing a few feet behind where Ash had landed, so close, she pouted as Bounsweet bounced towards her. "Soot." Mallow smiled. "Hey Lily. It's your turn." "And me." She seemed to break out of her daydreaming as he realized how high she was. "Jump right now." "Don't worry." Mallow giggled. "I'll catch you." Lily squeezed her eyes shut and allowed herself to fly off of the swing, and just as promised, right into Mallow's arms. She laughed a bit as Mallow seamlessly caught her bridal style. "Nice catch," a thumbs up from Ash. Mallow did a spin before setting Lily down, next up a battle of endurance. "What do you dash?" Lily was interrupted by Mallow running onto the merry-go-round. "People and Pokemon hop on. I'll be your conductor on the SS Dizzy." Satoshi laughed as he hopped on, Pikachu on his shoulder and Roulette still tucked into his bag. "Literally none of that made sense, but you are valid and I love you." Lily took a cautious seat as Mallow used her full force to push the merry-go-round, and her full force was a lot. She ran faster than a quick attack, going faster and faster before deeming it time to leap on herself. It was all good fun until it slowed down, in which everyone was sure they could use a persim berry to chase away the spinny feeling in their heads. They all took an unceremonious seat onto the mulch as Roulette flew in circles, trying to figure out which way was up. "Hey! Are you guys okay?" Mallow snapped out of her confusion and used foresight? Sophocles was identified. He was pulling a wagon behind him, it had lemons, some orange berries, and moo milk in it. Togedemaru was inside of it, munching on a berry. Kiawe could be spotted beside him, holding another container of moo milk that seemed like it wouldn't fit in the wagon. Yeah. Ash laughed, we're all good. Just a bit dizzy. What are you guys up to? We are getting ready for a lemonade stand. Sophocles gestured to his wagon, it's gonna be mixed with orange berries and set up at the beach. An idea sparkled in the Cantonian boy's eyes. Hey, can we help? I've got an awesome idea. Sure, Kiawe called. All right. I'll meet ya at the beach in 15 minutes. Ash picked up his still woozy Pikachu and caught Roulette in his bag. I'm gonna need someone to go back to Kukui's with me first though. I'll go. Mallow grinned, Bounsweet happily chirping behind her. Perfect, thanks. He turned to the other girl, Lily. Go on ahead with Sophocles and Kiawe. We'll meet ya there. All right. Lily called, check up on the egg for me. Will do. Sophocles set up the stand at the beach, using the help of Lily and Kiawe to freshly squeeze the lemonade. Where did Ash go anyway? Kiawe questioned, blocking out the sun with his hand. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Ash appeared dashing towards the stand with Mallow by his side, both of them holding bags full of berries of all shapes and sizes. You guys went to buy all these berries? Lily questioned. Of course not. Mallow chuckled, the professor had all of these berries in his fridge. We have way too many of them. Ash shrugged, this is the perfect way to not only expand the horizons of the lemonade, but also to use the berries before they go bad. Oh, I see. Lily grinned, grabbing a pecha berry. Awesome idea, Ash. Sophocles grabbed one of the bag from him, thanks a lot. No problem. Ash beamed as he began to start squeezing his own berry concoctions into a container under Mallow's careful instruction. Don't mix too many, some flavors might cancel out others. She squeezed 2 berries together. Wait, so is 7 different berries too much? Ash gave Mallow a sheepish grin. Which ones? She blinked. I honestly forget, he chuckled a bit as Pikachu facepalmed. Oh Ash. Lily giggled, how about you go spread the word? Yeah. Sophocles looked to Mallow, how about we use Bounsweet as a mascot of sorts? She can go around with Ash. Oh great idea, she patted Bounsweet on the head. Hey. Kiawe interrupted, I was gonna advertise. He pulled out some wooden signs, I made these and everything. I don't see why you both can't. Lily shrugged. Let's have a battle then. Ash jumped a bit. To decide who gets to do it? Sophocles tilted his head. Ash chuckled, nah, of course not. I mean we have an advertising battle. Whoever brings in the most customers wins. A smirk grew on Kiawe's face, it's on, fire seemed to glow in his eyes. And so it began with Rotom keeping score. The sign-flipping battle of the century while Bounsweet flew in between them, and well it seemed to work. A lot of people came by to watch the show as well as buy some lovely lemonade. It even attracted someone else familiar, Alola. Oh Lana. Mallow grinned. Want some lemonade? I would love some. She got one for her and Poplio, who barked with glee. I would actually love to help, Poplio and I just finished up fishing for today. That would be awesome. You want to help squeeze? Sophocles asked. Actually, I'd like to do that. She pointed over to Kiawe and Ash's intense sign flipping. Okay sure. Good luck. Lily gave a nervous grin. It's on. Somehow it seemed the fire in her eyes burned brighter than the one in Kiawe's. We're back, Professor. Great. How did the lemonade stand dash? The professor stood and stared. What's wrong? The Cantonian boy asked. Well, you are absolutely filthy. What happened? Kiawe and I went through some extreme measures for advertising, which included kicking up sand and dirt at the beach. It was an intense battle, the Alolan boy nodded. I see, and who won the battle? I did. Lana giggled as Poplio clapped her flippers together in amusement. Kukui laughed, somehow that made the most kind of sense. Satoshi ate his congratulatory dinner with eagerness. Roulette and Pikachu enjoying their meals at the restaurant as well. Taking a swig of his drink, Sato admired the new sparkling Z crystal on his wrist from Hala, or well Tapu Koko. But he'd still earned it. You did an amazing job at your grand trial and kahuna battle, Ash. The professor ate a forkful of noodles. Thanks, Professor. Satoshi pet both his Pokemon on the head, it's all thanks to these guys. Roulette let out a shrill coo, and Pikachu snuggled up into his trainer's hand with a chaya. Kukui smiled at the sight, remembering the days when he and his little Litten went through their own trials. Even sporting the shirtless look as a kid, he'd go all out, treating him and his Litten to a big malasada after a long day of intense battling. Hey Professor, Kukui was shaken from his thoughts, his eyes going back up to the Cantonese boy, who now had his back turned from the table. His two Pokémon were following suit. Yeah, Ash? It sounded as if the boy struggled to withhold laughter as he whipped his head around, his lips pursed outward, carefully balancing the noodles atop his lips. I must ask you a question. Rowlet's noodles fell unceremoniously off of his face, and Pikachu lost it, the singular spaghetti noodle flying off of the electric mouse as he fell backward with giggles. Satoshi himself ended up not being able to keep a straight face as Kukui snorted his drink out of his nose. The commotion from their laughter gained them quite a few stares and resulted in the both of them deciding it would be best to finish dinner as quickly as possible and have dessert elsewhere. They had settled on a local malasada food truck that always had freshly made malasadas. The honey smell was next to irresistible. Satoshi ran up to the truck with excitement. His eyes seemed to gleam, this place always smells awesome. He looked up to the clerks who seemed, oddly stiff as per usual, looking down a little bit with the beware hat overshadowing much of their faces. They always had such an anxious vibe to them. Kukui joined Sato at the counter. What do you think we should get, Ash? Satoshi looked over at the menu, spotting a Wobbuffet's tail peeking out from behind it. I think we should get the honey happiness malasadas. Amazing idea, Satoshi. Kukui smiled, musing his hair. We'll take 5 of those, please. The vendors seemed to look up a bit, a surprised expression on their faces. Sure thing. Here you are. A strong Anovian accent came from a short vendor who quickly fixed their order and slid it to the group. They were thanked, then paid, before the twerp and the professor walked away. Jessie pursed her lips, lifting her hat. You heard that, right, Kojiro? Kojiro stretched, running a hand through his lavender hair. Yeah, I think I did. What about it, Musashi? Meowth perked up a bit at the names. They hadn't used them very often since coming to the Alolan region. They usually used their code names that they used on Team Rocket business. One's easier to say across many regions since other Team Rocket members from other regions would often mispronounce and butcher their names. Fake nails tapped against the counter. Not a soul had called the Yari boy Satoshi since he was traveling back in Kanto. Well, I would assume he goes by that other name because it's easier for others to say. Kojiro shrugged it off. Musashi pursed her lips. Right, but there has got to be a reason that only Kukui is using it. Kojiro seemed to take an interest in that fact. You are right. Nobody else calls him that. It seems like a more personal thing. Not to mention, Meowth began, his guard seems to be down around the professor, and didn't you see that earlier? He must up his hair too. Musashi smirked. Perhaps this goes deeper than we thought. We have never seen his father, though we have seen his mother, she pointed out. That doesn't mean Kukui is his father then, does it? Kojiro questioned. Who knows? Pink hair was readjusted in its tie. But what we do know is that they at the very least have that sort of dynamic. The twerp seems to let his guard down around Kukui at the least, so that may be a good opportunity to try and grab ourselves a superpowered Pikachu. She grinned, clapping her hands together with glee. Let's pursue, the trio shouted together. Wobbuffet. Ash was having an awesome day. He played all day in the water and sand. He did so many things he hadn't done since he was 10 or 11. There was a water fight, sand castles, and even playing pretend. Lana had proclaimed herself the Ocean Queen with Poplio as her princess. Mallow was the queen from the Grass Kingdom who wanted the ocean as part of her territory too, with Bounsweet as her princess. Ash and Lily were knights for Mallow, while Kiawe and Sophocles were knights for Lana, along with all of their Pokémon too of course, though Turtonator decided it was best to stay ashore. The ocean is mine, Lana claimed, splashing her foot into the water. No. It belongs to me. Mallow grinned. Princess Bounsweet deserves a big kingdom to inherit. Night Ash, night Lily. We have to do something. Right. Ash grinned. Pikachu, let's charge. Pika. Pikachu hopped onto his shoulder as they ran forwards, Lily behind them. At your defense, Knight Kiawe. Knight. Sophocles. Gotcha. On it. Sophocles held up Togedemaru, skid across the water girl. Toge, the round Pokémon spun around, skipping across the water like a stone. Kiawe went along with the little electric type, splashing his feet in the water as he aimed a nice splash at Ash. Ash placed a hand over his chest in an exaggerated way and yelled, Ack. I'm down. He fell to his knees. Pikachu, avenge me. Pikapi. Pikachu seemed to roll his eyes with a sort of laugh. He jumped towards Togedemaru as they began to splash as well. Take this. Lily jumped up and splashed Kiawe, who laughed and returned the gesture. All the while Alana and Mallow charged at each other with their Pokémon. The impact of the water was about to occur when Leo! Soot! Happy noises erupted from the berry Pokémon as she found herself inside a bubble that Poplio balanced atop her nose with style. Oh, Mallow tapped her chin. Oh my. The princesses. Lana cried dramatically. Are in love. Stop the battle. Everyone halted the splashing to look towards Lana. From this point on the kingdoms shall be merged. Poplio's bubble popped, and Bounsweet drifted down into the water with laughter and a little plop. All right. Now that the turf war has been resolved, how about a little lunch? Kukui called out to the kids who all rushed ashore in response. They all sat on a picnic blanket and enjoyed their meals. Kukui has brought some awesome mac and cheese that he'd made too much of the night prior for he and Ash. Pikachu and Ash had matching cheesy faces by the end of the meal. Rowlet avoiding that fate by preferring some simple Pokemon food. The sun warmed his face and he was surrounded by friends. He was playing in ways he hadn't since he was a kid. He felt like a younger kid and for once that felt okay. There was no way the day could possibly get any better. He was right. He couldn't move. Tears streamed down his face. How could this have happened? Pika dash, Satoshi had fallen to his knees, not even able to catch enough of his breath to finish the word. They were taking him away. They were finally taking away his Pokemon. Pikachu. Please. Not here. Not now. He was too weak, he'd let his guard down. It was all so very bad. Tears streamed down his face as he struggled to breathe. No. Then a miracle happened. A large familiar, pink Pokemon swept in and whisked them all away. All of them but Pikachu. Satoshi sobbed as the mouse Pokemon ran into his arms. His trainer held him tight, hiccups interrupting his breaths. Pikapi. Pikachu places a paw on his chest as he continued to sob. Pikachu. I'm sorry Pikachu, it, not okay. Not good bad. Pikachu looked upwards towards the concerned owl Pokemon, Pikapi. Pikuchayu. Chu Pichui. Rowlet cawed and flew off as fast as possible. Satoshi lost all ability to think. To move. To do anything but hold Pikachu close and cry like the small child he felt like he was. He hardly registered firm hands on his shoulders. Or a soothing voice trying to speak to him. Nor even when he was picked up and moved. It felt like decades stuck like that. Until reality finally began to come back to him. He was warm. Pikachu was still in his arms. And two strong soothing arms were wrapped around him. Hands were rubbing his back and comforting words were being spoken to him. He looked up to see Kukui and Rockruff looking down at him. Hey Satoshi. Kukui said a bit quietly. Kukui? Sato laid his head tiredly down on Kukui's chest. What happened? He felt very confused. A steady hand ran through his messy black hair. That's what I would like to know too. Do you remember anything after you left to find some Pokemon? Satoshi pet Pikachu on the head. I was climbing some rocks, then I saw, brown eyes filled with tears, oh Pikachu. He hugged his Pokemon close to his chest. Hey, Kukui soothed, Pikachu is right here. Pikapi. A small fuzzy yellow paw reached up and touched Satoshi's face. Right. Team Rocket was there with this, new Pokemon. It caught me off guard and I lost. His voice broke. It's okay to lose sometimes. Kukui comforted. But it wasn't just that I lost. I'd lost before. And I'd always got Pikachu back but it was me who got him back. I was weak. Vulnerable. I can never be vulnerable. Small sobs interrupted him. I felt young today. I felt like a kid, like it was okay to be a little kid but it wasn't. It's all my fault and Pikachu almost got taken away for it. Satoshi held Pikachu tight as the electric type gently nuzzled him. Sato, Kukui held him closer. I noticed you were having a lot of fun today. Playing with everyone else. Shouldn't have been playing. Why not? Everyone else was. I need to be big right now. To be strong. Satoshi choked on his breath. I feel so very small right now though. It felt good feeling small again and playing with everyone. Kukui offered his hand and Satoshi took it. I have to be big cause everyone else everywhere acts big too. I used to be able to be small when I was actually little but now it's just weird of me. I'm sorry. I need to grow up. He clenched his eyes shut. Hey, nothing to apologize for. Kukui soothed the Cantonese boy. Why do you always have to be big? Gotta be big cause everyone wants me too. I have so much responsibilities, too important always. It's always up to me to be the hero. Iris always called me a kid. A little kid like an insult. Was never respected t'all. He sniffled. I made sure to grow up before moving on to Kalos. But now I'm just some stupid little kid again. Can't do nothing right. Kukui ran another hand soothingly through his hair. There's nothing wrong with acting and playing like a kid you know. He smiled gently, you're only 14 after all. But I act like I'm 9 or 10. It's not always bad but I can't afford to be such a child. Thought sometimes. I like to go back to how it was, before it all happened. Tears wet Kukui's lab coat. He wouldn't press too hard about whatever I was that happened. Satoshi, can you look at me for a second? Brown-eyed gazed up at him. You remember how you played with everyone today? MMHM. They were playing because they wanted to play with you. They're all close to your age and Kiawe is even older than you. So they play even though they're older. How come? Well, Kukui tapped his chin. I think it's just the social climate here. Kids around Alola don't feel as much pressure to feel like they have to grow up. He exhaled, you don't need to feel that pressure either. A sniffle came from Satoshi. If you ever want to act or feel something that makes you feel not your age, that's just fine. It's okay to feel small sometimes and to act on it. You can play games and laugh and play pretend. It's your life. Have fun, Satoshi. But what if? Sometimes bad thing may happen, but it's not because you are feeling more small than usual. Those things that happen are out of our control. Never blame yourself and how you feel for that. It's okay to be a kid, everyone else does, and if you ever need help, don't be afraid to ask. I'll always be there to help. Kukui was hugged tight. Thank you, Kukui. He placed a hand atop the boy's head, always. A calm silence. Do you want to read the get well cards from your friends? The professor asked. A smile graced Sato's face. They wrote me letters? MMHM, a warm grin. I want to read them. He pet Pikachu on the head once more. All right then. Kukui pulled out an envelope that seemed overfilled. Inside were many brightly colored cards. Satoshi took one in his hand and looked inside. Everything was all right now. And he had people that cared. At least for now. Things would just maybe be a little more than okay. Professor Kukui was officially the best professor ever. Ash shoved another forkful of waffle in his mouth, a bit of syrup dripping down his chin, Pikachu sporting a matching look beside him. Roulette was more into the berry box at the end of the table, where the rest of the toppings were available. After the pancake race had been lost, everyone was disappointed, especially Kiawe, who couldn't even finish the second lap of the race. After all, it wasn't his fault his partner Pokemon was almost 500 pounds. Kukui had gone out and picked out a few waffle makers from the store, and his one from the house, and brought them all to school the next day. Yes. Waffles fix everything. Sophocles finished off his stack with some whipped cream, raspberry syrup, and a sherry berry on top. His Pokemon too busy rolling about the classroom to be interested in the food. Lana took a big bite of her own creation as Poplio clapped in her lap. Ah yes, free serotonin. Mallow laughed beside her, the plate in front of her looking more like a work of art than a meal, and Bounsweet circling around her. Mood, her mouth was full of raspberry. Kiawe was going all out, piling it up with almost every kind of topping he could find, all the syrups, and a lot of different berries before he sat down, Turtonator greatly enjoying a spicy berry plate left out for him. Lily had carefully balanced her egg in her lap. She had a very simple, small plate of just plain waffles, and some orange berries on the side. Thank you for the surprise breakfast, Professor. Kukui grinned. It's nothing at all. I thought that everyone could use a pick-me-up after that race. He began preparing his own plate. I will miss you, promise of free pancakes. Ash held up a piece of waffle forlornly, before directing it into his mouth. Lily rested her hand on her cheek, lightly picking at her waffles. The egg moved around more and more each day, in fact it was wobbling around in her lap. Lily dropped her fork onto the table as it began to glow. She picked it up and swiftly ran it over to an empty desk. Lily? Is everything okay? What's wrong with the egg? Everyone crowded around her. Lily was tearing up a bit. I don't know, I don't think I did anything wrong. Kukui kneeled against the desk and smiled. Lily, it's okay. His tone was gentle. You did perfectly, the egg is hatching. Lily wiped her eyes a bit. Snowy's hatching? The egg broke apart brilliantly, slightly blinding everyone and dazing Roulette enough to make him confused. A bundle of white fluff emerged from the egg. Vua, Blue Eyes gazed around, locking eyes with Lily. The moment of awe was shattered when Principal Oak dashed in. My cousin's egg. It's hatching. Come and see before I cause a tiflosion of excitement. He placed his own egg at the desk, and it glowed just as bright, but it felt much warmer than the other Pokemon's entrance. Vol, the brown Pokemon, hopped out of the egg's remains, full of energy. A Vulpix. Ash immediately recognized and pointed out, one of my friends had one of you once. The Pokemon bumped up against his hand. And you are sure a lot friendlier than that one, he giggled. Snowy, Lily uttered. Her heart rate sped up as the white Pokemon gazed at her, and her alone. Until, and you must be an Alolan Vulpix, he ran over to greet the other Pokemon. Hey. I'm Ash. It's nice to meet Augh. The Cantonian boy nearly turned blue from the cold that the Vulpix had trapped him in. That somehow cueing the other Vulpix to go, oh boy, time to fry the child, and spat an ember at him. Ash? Are you okay? Lily bit her lip. Why, yeah, I'll be okay, just cold, and hot and… Phew, he rubbed his arms with an awkward smile as Pikachu nuzzled his cheek. Snowy? Mallow questioned, her gaze fixing on Lily. Yeah, that's what I called the egg, at least temporarily while I was taking care of it, it just felt right. RRT. RRRT. Updating data. Rotom spun around the group, snapping pictures galore. Vulpix, and its Cantonian form. Data updated. Floating over to Kukui, he waved his arms about. I have some blank spaces in my data, who do these Pokemon belong to, ZZT? Well, that's a very good question. Oak picked up the red Pokemon. I'll take care of this little one. Since I raised the egg, but I'll leave the ice type for you all to figure out. The principal took his leave. So, Lily tapped her fingers together, who's gonna take care of her? Mallow crossed her arms with a grin. I think we all know who's taking care of Snowy. She reached into her pocket and handed her an empty Pokeball. Lily really hated all the eyes on her. Everyone ran out of the schoolyard once the bell rang signaling the end of class. Lana ran to the beach, while Sophocles ran to his lab, Togedemaru spinning right behind him. Kiawe hopped on his ride Charizard, flying right back home to Akala Island. Ash and Mallow were chatting near the front gate as Lily approached it, grasping the Pokeball in her hand. She couldn't believe it. Vulpix chose her. Even after looking like an idiot and being so nervous about the idea of touching her, she'd missed the throw completely. Then the little snowball hopped off the desk and caught herself in it. Said Pokemon was walking right beside her. Careful to not brush her leg with the puffy tail on her bottom. Lily felt so bad. This Pokemon was so sweet, even after she'd frozen and begun to cry at the prospect of touching her. She told Snowy she was sorry and the Pokemon still remained loyally affectionate, as much as she could from a distance, that is. She spoke to her friends once more at the gate, declining her usual car ride at the option offered up by Ash. Just take a walk with her, I'm sure it will help you bond. And so off they went, Lily not giving herself any more excuses. She would be a good trainer to Snowy. They had about 20 minutes worth of a peaceful afternoon until Team Rocket decided that they wanted her Pokemon. She only knew one of Snowy's moves, if she even had any more than that. And she kept using the same one over and over again. They were cornered, and she only just got her Pokemon. She can't lose her now. Pea Powder Snow. That one's getting old, the pink-haired woman laughed. Mimikyu. Shadow Ball. Lily watched as the Pokemon refused once more. She grabbed her hair in frustration. Come on. Pretend it's Pikachu, okay? Please. XXKRRRXXXKKKRK? You are so much harder to understand than all of my other Pokemon. The Pokemon turned away in objection once more. Fine then. If he won't battle, then I will. The Unovan accented Meowth began to approach with claws drawn. Let's see how you like my fury swipes. Lily watched helplessly as her Pokemon was thrown over the edge of the wall, falling far down. She couldn't know. She could. She had to, this was her Pokemon, and her responsibility to keep safe. As the Vulpix was tossed over the edge, she jumped after it. Arms outstretched, grabbing onto her Pokemon, and holding her close. Lily inhaled as she braced for impact. Snowy's fur smelled just like the egg did, and she was so very soft and gentle. This was the Pokemon she'd been caring for during these past weeks, the one she had read stories to, sang lullabies to, held close whenever possible. Snowy. Tears filled up her eyes as she held the Pokemon closer. Rowlet. Leafage. Crow. A strong wind broke her fall. She gazed at her Pokemon. Hey, are you okay, Snowy? Snowy cooed, bumping her fluffy head under her trainer's hands. Lily, are you okay? Mallow stopped in front of her, offering a hand to help her up. Lily stood up by herself. Wait, you're holding Snowy. Mallow pointed out. Of course. Lily smiled, I'm her trainer after all. She pointed up at the wall where Team Rocket stood. Give them a powerful powder snow to remember. Ash grinned and called out an attack for Pikachu to use himself, finish it off with a thunderbolt. Lily sat at the table in Professor Kukui's kitchen. Her friends were all outside by the beach, doing some sunset training. Lily, are you alright? He asked her gently. I guess so. Earlier while your friends were talking about what happened today. They mentioned that you jumped off a wall, a very tall one. Lily's hand scritched her Pokemon. It wasn't like I had many other options, it was, scary and Snowy was? Falling. I see. Kukui rested a hand on his chin. Please don't tell my mother. She looked down. Why not? Kukui calmly questioned. She already babies me enough, I don't need her deciding I'm not allowed to walk home anymore. I can take care of myself and my Pokemon. And that's what I was doing today, for me, and Snowy. Kukui gave her a smile. Okay Lily, I won't tell Luzaman. The girl relaxed her shoulders that she hadn't realized were tense. But, I will have to ask you something. Yes? I know that seemed like your only option, and it probably was, but remember that when you take care of your Pokemon, to take care of yourself too. 'Cause Snowy needs you as much as you need her. Lily looked down at her Vulpix that sat in her lap, now pawing at the end of her braid. Will do, Professor. She nodded firmly. All right then, and remember, you can always come to me if you need help, or just to talk. Lily smiled and nodded, and Ash, almost on cue, ran through the doorway, the screen door screeching behind him as it slowly closed shut. Professor, do we have any popsicles left? I don't know, did you eat them all last night? He smirked towards the boy. No, I didn't, and I told you, that was only once, and it was the combined efforts of Pikachu and I. The only thing he likes more than those things is ketchup. Wait, is that where it keeps going? Kukui's eyes went wide. I thought I was being hit with Psyshocks. Pika, the electric mouse, sheepishly waved from Ash's shoulder as the boy pulled out the box of popsicles. Yes. Knew it. He turned to Lily. Hey, do you want to do some training with us? Or just hang on the beach? He offered a popsicle. She smiled and took it. Yeah, I'd like that. Thanks, Ash. Once it had gotten too dark to see well without Turtonator shooting out a move, they all went inside and decided to hang out a little bit before heading home. Okay, so what game do we want to play? Mallow stretched and plopped down onto the couch. Lana rocked back and forth on her flip-flops. How about Minecraft? Oh hell yeah. Yes please. I'm gonna beat the Ender Dragon way faster than last time, just you watch. Oh. Who wants to start a farm with me? I will. What's Minecraft? All eyes turned to Ash like he'd committed a crime. How do you not know what Minecraft is? Sophocles dramatically cried out. It's like a massive pop culture thing. Lily added. Ash shrugged. I dunno, I was never one for video games, I was always too busy journeying, and battling, and outdoor games were my hobbies. I mean, I played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon when I was younger. Kiawe nodded. My respect for you has been slightly restored. But it doesn't excuse his Minecraft crimes. Lana announced. It was time for Minecraft. And thankfully Sophocles is always prepared for video games, so there was enough room for everyone to play between him and Lana's switches. Lily made herself and Snowy matching cheese and cracker sandwiches as Rotom was lecturing Ash on his mining methods. You know, Ash, you shouldn't dig straight down. ZRRT. According to the Minecraft wiki, it can be very dangerous, you could fall in lava or a dash. As if Rotom willed it into reality, Ash was suddenly falling into a ravine. Then somehow managed to land in a little puddle of water. Hey. Trust the process, Rotom, he smirked as he walked around. Hey. Those are diamonds, Ash. Grab 'em. Mallow pointed out. Ash's eyes sparkled like the precious gem as he quickly began to mine them, until Sophocles cried out, wait and oh dash. Both diamonds were mined. And not in his inventory. Where did they dash? You can't use a stone pickaxe, Ash. Lana explained, helping Mallow build a cottage. Lily was content with her Torchic farm, building them a bigger coop as the army of them grew. Kiawe, you knew that. You gave me the pick. And told me to go for it. You let me lose the diamonds. What a shame. Kiawe said with a hint of a smile, already building a nether portal. Then, a brilliant idea spawned in Lana's mind. She turned her blue head of hair to the Pokédex in the corner. Rotom. Play Revenge by Captain Sparkles. I don't have music player functionality, Lana. ZZT. Rotom quirked to the side. Then open a web browser and play the Minecraft song. Minecraft songs. Minecraft songs. Minecraft songs. Minecraft songs. Minecraft songs. Rotom gave in to the chanting children and the memes commenced. They laughed and sang along, munching on more cheese crackers, until a single whine called out from the kitchen. Ash set down his remote and stepped into the kitchen. Rockruff, what happened? Everyone dropped their remotes and surrounded the poor puppy Pokemon. He was covered in scratches, bite marks, and even burns. Professor Kukui. Hurry. Rockruff needs medical attention. Kukui rushed upstairs, holding onto a first aid kit. Lily handed Kukui the materials while Ash comforted Rockruff through the pain of cleaning up the wounds. Once he was all fixed up, everyone decided it was probably best to head home so Kukui could figure out what happened with Rockruff. Lily held Snowy tight as she left. Hey Mallow? Yeah, Lily? The blonde looked down. Could I wait at your house until my ride picks me up there? I don't want to try walking after what happened today. Of course. Mallow wrapped an arm around her and they began the trek home. Bounsweet flying after them. Ash waved goodbye at them, looking behind him with concern towards the injured Rockruff. The screen door bounced back and forth as it slowly shut. Satoshi ran home with Kukui behind him, holding the still injured Rockruff. It had been 3 days since the puppy Pokemon had begun to go missing, and they finally got results from a stakeout. That Magmar's a tough opponent, huh? He commented, turning around walking backwards. Brown eyes trained on Rockruff as he wagged his tail, happy to be in Kukui's arms. But you sure do love training on Clawmark Hill. They stepped onto the porch, the old wooden stairs creaking beneath them. Rockruff whined as Kukui set him down and picked up the already prepared first aid kit. You know, Sato laid his head in his arms at the table, you wouldn't have to get fixed up so much if you could use that move I saw you charge up earlier. The Rockruff perked up. Rurf? It was probably Rock Throw, Kukui commented, the most basic of rock-type moves. Satoshi stood up. Alright then. Rockruff, how about we do some training together tomorrow? And you can learn that move you've been working so hard on. The puppy Pokemon barked in agreement, leaping down before Kukui could treat his next burn. Special training it is. The next day training began as soon as Satoshi got home, tossing his backpack on the floor. Satoshi, backpack. Kukui reminded, making himself a mug of life-giving coffee. Right. Sorry. His backpack on the hook in the loft, before running outside with Rockruff. Kukui shouldn't have found himself surprised with how Satoshi trained. It really made perfect sense with the way he'd always described battling. With lots of exclamations and onomatopoeia. Okay Rockruff. Let's get hyped. Wag your tail, and bounce around, get hyped like boom. Sato made an example of himself, getting on hands and knees and wagging his tail. Pikachu happily joined his trainer in the method. When Kiawe flew by overhead, he decided to make a stop to see what the hell his friend was doing. Then that led to his offer to help since Turtonator knew fire-type moves like Magmar did. Rockruff failed to dodge the fire moves a few times, but after some work with Pikachu, he was steadying himself as well as the electric mouse could. Eventually, more friends came along just to watch. There was running on the beach, getting themselves sandy beyond measure, jumping around, and taking a giant nap under a tree. Then everyone marveled at how easily Ash took the hits of the rock throws Rockruff finally managed to produce. After each hit, awesome. Keep it up. Yes. Mallow called out, unsure, hey Ash, doesn't that, hurt? A bright grin as Rockruff hit him again. Nope. Not at all, a giggle. Lana pursed her lips, it totally hurts. Finally the sun was setting and everyone was heading home. But Lily lingered behind. She grabbed his hand. Ash, can I talk to you for a second? Brown eyes gazed at her. Yeah, sure thing. He sat down on a nearby rock, bordering the beach, patting beside him for Lily to sit. What's up? I was just thinking, the way that you trained with Rockruff today, you communicated in a way I'd never seen before. At least with anyone else. She looked down at her Vulpix. I heard Kukui say earlier to Rotom that you spoke to Rockruff with your eyes, with your heart. She looked at Ash. I want to learn how to do that with Snowy. Well, it's easy for me to do that for, reasons. He patted Pikachu's head, but that doesn't mean others can't connect that way. You just need a good, and deep understanding with your Pokemon. For example, I can always understand everything Pikachu says because he's been by my side for years, and there's nothing I won't do for him. Reasons? Lily questioned. Ash chuckled a bit. I don't know everything about it but, something happened to me a good while ago, and ever since then I basically speak Pokemon after only spending a little while with them. Weird stuff, but I suppose I'm thankful for it. A small smile fell upon his face as he booped Pikachu's nose. The Pokemon giggling at the gesture. Well, I mean, I sort of get what you mean by what you would do for your Pokemon. I jumped off a ledge for Snowy. Professor Kukui said it was dangerous but it's what I had to do. That kind of stuff, when your Pokemon could die. It's scary, almost as scary as the prospect of you dying. Ash looked down. Pikapi? Pikachu placed a paw over his beating heart. He looked back to Lily. Yeah, maybe even scarier. I've decided that I'm gonna grow closer with Snowy, and then keep on growing connections with other Pokemon. How you do? I'll work through this, no matter what I will be able to touch Pokemon again one day. The Cantonian boy grinned. Yeah. That's the spirit. I know you can do it, even if it takes a while you can reach your dream. She nodded. MMHM. Baby steps. Good night Ash, she waved as she walked to the car waiting on her. Night, he called back, waving as well. Then clutching Pikachu tighter as he entered the house to help Rockruff prepare a bit more. Later that night, he returned with a newly caught Rockruff, and a lot of intrusive thoughts swirling about in his head. He let the Pokemon out, placed a faux smile on his face and began to play around. Tossing a ball back and forth as the three Pokemon chased it about in the living room. It's surprisingly easy to pretend everything is fine when you fall asleep with a pile of Pokemon on the professor's living room floor. Kukui tapped his fingers on the table as he stared at the latest round of notes from the lab. It was surprisingly nice to read to the background of Rotom yelling at the TV, and the yell of roulette. Leafage, from outside. He heard a muffled zap outside and a screech from Rowlet. Pikachu. I told you that you can't wake Rowlet like you wake me. Pika. The professor glanced towards the Pokemon door to see a very fried Rowlet waddle in, all puffy and huffy. He flapped his wings around in an irritated way as he attempted to groom himself. Glad for the excuse to not do what he was doing, Kukui stood up and stretched. He snatched up the Pokemon and grabbed a brush from the grooming bin and began to work on the puffed-up feathers. Goodness, Pikachu sure did a number on you, huh? Crew. Rowlet puffed, settling comfortably into the familiar lap of the professor. He gazed up at Rotom's fifth rewatch of the latest Alolan Detective Loki episode. Yes. BRRT. Rotom yelled, turning up his volume excitedly quoting the episode word for word, and so the culprit is AAEEII? Ash. Hurry. The screen had turned blue, with a phone ringing icon. Kukui chuckled, Rotom, it's just a video call. The Pokédex crossed his arms, yes. But Ash and I agreed to schedule video call times so I would have the television to watch Loki. If Ash needs to talk to someone, they should have called him on the phone. Rotom flashed an upset emoji on his screen. If he's talking with the TV, where do I watch Loki? The Alolan man smirked, maybe his phone? Rotom's emoji turned angry, how dare you? Watching on such a small screen is a disgrace to Loki. Only the best for him. Kukui stood and looked out the window, Satoshi. You have a video call. The Cantonese boy was coated in dirt, he seemed to be helping Pikachu and Rockruff dig an impressive-looking hole in the ground. Really? Now? He seemed confused. You're also what are you digging? A well? I don't know why, but Rockruff wanted to. Choo-choopy! Pikachu cheered, waving to the professor. Sato stood up, dusting himself off. Pikachu, you help Rockruff fill in the hole, I'll be back out soon. Pika. A roof. He ran inside, shaking the dirt out of his hair as he slid to a stop in the living room. No caller ID? A bit puzzled he looked to the professor who only shrugged. It is to your number, he shrugged. Satoshi sat down in front of the screen and answered the call. A cheerful and excitable green and brown Pokemon appeared on the other side. Pin. Chespin. Satoshi beamed. Chespin. Hey! Pin. Suddenly a door slammed open, knocking down something out of shot. A very nervous voice called over to the Pokemon, Chespin. What are you doing? Who even taught you to use that? Was it Bunnelby? Cheese! The boy walked into frame, sporting his signature blue and yellow jumpsuit. He picked up the Pokemon. What am I gonna do with you? Don't worry, I don't mind. Ash grinned and waved. It's always great to see your face again. Clement's face went beet red. Ash. Chespin, why did you call him? I think he did you a favor, Clement. A young blonde hopped into frame. You did say that you wanted to talk to him but didn't know how to write that letter dash. She popped her head into view. Bonnie, stop. Clem stepped in front of her. So you wanted to talk to me? Ash questioned. Why yeah but it's nothing really, I guess I just missed you, you know? We haven't talked since months ago. Yeah, right. Sorry Clem. Kukui perked up upon laying eyes on the boy as he cleaned up his work. Satoshi, who's this? The black-haired boy looked behind him. Professor. This is my friend Clement. He's a gym leader in the Kalos region. One of my closest friends. Bonnie had found her way back in front of her brother. Who's Satoshi? Clement patted her head. Remember Bonnie? That's his real name, he just uses Ash on journeys. Oh. Right. Bonnie jokingly bonked herself on the head. Her brother laughed. I'm actually surprised you forgot after dash. Bonnie dropped her smile upon realizing what he was talking about. No. Don't bring it up. You evil big brother. When Serena first met us, and called him Satoshi, you were all dash. Don't say it. No. Bonnie pleaded. He made his voice higher, grabbing a bit of his hair to the side to mimic her ponytail. Oh. This must be embarrassing for you. His name's actually Ash. Deden. Nuzzle. Clement took the shock in stride. Joke's on you. I'm almost as desensitized to electric moves as Ash at this point. Kukui stuck his head into the conversation on Ash's side. Wait, I know you. You're that young man who came into Sycamore's lab with Blaziken and Mask during the professor's conference. Clement adjusted his glasses, about to speak but Bonnie beat him to it. You're the shirtless professor. Kukui choked on a laugh, while Clement stumbled over an apology. I am so sorry. She has zero filter dash. No worries. I have kind of created that brand for myself. The professor walked into the next room over and placed the dishes in the sink. So, Clement began, you must be in Alola now? Yep. Ash affirmed, he's my host family. Sort of, yeah. A host family can totally be one guy, a Rockruff, and a future Pokemon master. Clement smiled with a chuckle. I'm staying with him while I attend the Pokemon school here. Oh wow. Clement blinked. I never took you for the school type. The only kind of learning you ever seemed to enjoy was non-systematic, without patterns. You are self-taught, that is unless I'm showing off an invention dash. Hey! Science is amazing and cool. Ash pointed out, and this isn't a normal school. I've learned so much, made so many friends, and I am studying Z moves. He held up his Z ring, with Electrium Z placed in it. A big smile appeared on the inventor's face. I have heard of those. But I have never gotten much of a chance to study them. They sound absolutely amazing. He giggled with glee. It's such a concept that striking a pose can power up a Pokemon. Well, it's more than just that. Kukui smiled as the kid began to talk about all he'd learned. The kid had really learned a lot since he'd come here, and he was really showing it, and excited enough about it that he was sharing it. From how Hanako described his prior school career, it was apparently extremely unimpressive. He would be late every day, chasing after Pokemon before class, and not coming back in after recess either. Yet, Satoshi was always obsessed with Pokemon, always being attentive at Pokemon camp, playing Pokemon Shirtorai with his friend Shigeru. Always beating him apparently. Satoshi stayed on the call till Clement declared it was Bonnie's bedtime, and therefore time to head home. They both left the call with promises to talk real soon. Kukui noted the bubbly mood the boy had been trapped in, humming to himself as he gave his Pokemon a quick grooming before bed. Kukui walked by, musing with the kid's hair on his way by him. Good night, Satoshi. He say the boy close his eyes, content for a moment before opening them and beaming. Night, Professor. Oh Arceus. Sheet. The battle between Ash and Tapu Koko was mesmerizing, amazing how willing the Tapu was to battle him of all people. Something most of the student body had gathered around to watch. And then Pikachu went flying over the cliff. It was definitely a drop of over 300 feet. And Satoshi jumped after his partner. Kukui ran onto the battlefield, reaching the broken fence and looking down, feeling quite faint. Satoshi! He cried with worry, looking downwards. He could see the figures of the Guardian and his boy down far below. Immediately upon seeing that down below, he did something that he would never have done otherwise. Braviary, he called his flying Pokemon out. The students gasped behind at the fact that he had a Pokemon partner. I need you to fly me down. He held out his wrist, and Braviary took it in understanding, gliding him down the cliffs, talons sharp on his arm. They were the first to reach the bottom, where Tapu Koko was holding Satoshi, who was grasping onto Pikachu impossibly tight. They were mere inches from hitting the ground. Kukui tried to stand but fell to a knee. His legs were shaky from the fear he'd been overwhelmed with. He reached to the Tapu, who hovered a bit further upwards, grasping the boy tighter in their grasp. Satoshi's eyes were empty, not even looking at his Pokemon. Glassy. His chest was moving erratically with terrified gasps. Koko, he gazed into their eyes. Put him down. The Guardian stared for a few moments, before gently placing him down in front of Kukui, the professor quick to gather the kid in his arms. Pikachu was shaken as well, but still aware of his surroundings, huddling up on Kukui's shoulder and pressing his face into his neck. The yellow mouse whined, Pikapi. Kukui ended up running home with him in his arms, Rockruff and Rolette left behind for the moment. He'd almost tripped going up the stairs of his porch, shoving the door open and immediately placing him on the couch. Times like this he thanked his training with Incineroar. Satoshi had since closed his eyes, his sleep looking eventful and stressful based off his expressions. Kukui leaned down beside him and placed his hand on his head once more. Keiki. He was so horrible. Horrible at everything. Pikachu was falling. Pikachu could have died. That was what was important. His legs moved without hesitation. He had to save his Pokemon. Death was almost as scary as that moment. Almost. Satoshi supposed he should be afraid of heights at this point. After that fall from Lumio's tower, he was surprised Clement remained his friend after that. Ash? That was... Wow. He had sat next to him, awkwardly cleaning his glasses. Sorry if I scared you, it was just, Pikachu. He gazed at his partner, petting his fuzzy head. He was falling, and then, tears began welling up in his eyes, but he willed them back. No. 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 He wasn't a kid anymore. He wouldn't let Iris' words be true. Ash forced out a laugh. We had to help, it's just what we do, you know. He gave Clement a smile. Are you sure you're okay? I just dash. Really, I am. How's Bonnie doing? He scooted closer. Well, Clement scratched the back of his head, a little shaken up, but she'll probably do better after seeing you up and about tomorrow morning. Don't worry. Ash slipped his hand into Clement's. I'm not going anywhere. His faux smile worked well, Clement's face reddening a bit as he nodded. Satoshi awoke feeling off, and wrong, and completely unfocused. He couldn't comprehend much, but what he could comprehend was that Pikachu wasn't there. His scratchy voice called out, "PPIH, a cough, Kachu? Pikachu?" Pikapi, the electric mouse skidded around the kitchen counter and leaped over to him, offering a non-electrical nuzzle. Once curled up with his trainer, he looked over towards the kitchen again, where Kukui was standing with some dishes. "Chuchupi! Satoshi?" His brown eyes, still glassy but with a bit more clarity, gazed at him. "Are you okay? Satoshi?" The boy turned away, holding on to Pikachu, shaking his head sharply. "MMNNNM. How can I help?" he asked gently. Sato only turned over, face down on the pillow. "Do you want me to help?" He slowly turned over, looking still towards Pikachu, finally speaking. "I dunno. Can I try to help?" He inched closer. A deep breath. "Okay." Kukui gave him a small smile. "Can I touch you?" Satoshi nodded, sitting up and lifting up his head a bit in an expectant way. Kukui knew exactly what he wanted, and it made sense too, he supposed. He placed his hand atop the boy's head and gently ruffled the hair affectionately. Satoshi's body began to visibly relax at the action. Sato moved a bit over to the side, and Kukui took it as permission to sit beside him. Sato slowly moved over to sit in his lap, Pikachu walking back around to the other side to offer his boy nuzzles. "Satoshi, can you tell me why you jumped?" "No. Patience." Kukui reminded himself. "Do you want me to call your mama?" The kid looked him in the eyes, and shook his head back and forth. No. He pulled Pikachu closer to him, who in return offered little licks to his face. She got scared enough in Kalos. Kukui pursed his lips. He'd have to ask about that later. "Okay, I won't call your mama." "Promise." He glanced up. "I won't do anything unless you give me your permission." To Sato, he offered another grounding hand to the boy's head. He nodded, happy with the answer. Sato was very simple and quiet in his answers. Odd for him. Kukui recalled a similar situation, an incident that had also involved Pikachu. "Satoshi, can you tell me how old you feel?" The boy had shifted in his lap, now with his arms wrapped around Kukui. "Dunno, I feel small, maybe 9. 10? Miss being 10. Kukui smiled. "You can be 10 if you want to? Or feel like it, I'm not gonna stop you." Sato hugged him, his breathing slowing even more. Kukui ran another hand through his hair as he hummed happily. "Thanks, Papa." Sato uttered, hugging him tighter. Kukui faltered for a moment, surprised but still able to offer a response. "Of course, Keiki." Pikachu squeezed himself right into the snuggle pile. "Is there something you wanna do?" he asked. "I wanna play, yeah, I wanna play with Pokemon." "Well, lucky for you your friend stopped by with your other Pokemon." Satoshi popped his head up and looked around to the corner of the room, where Rowlet sat snoozing beside Rockruff. And Sato looked up at him, right as his stomach let out a large growl. Kukui laughed and patted his head, getting Sato to giggle. Mallow brought over a classic Alolan casserole. "Perfect." He closed his eyes, almost tasting it already. Kukui smiled at the memory of Sato kicking a ball outside with his Pokemon, calling out the rules, breaking them himself, and getting dogpiled by them all. Said boy was now in bed, early of all things. Earlier than usual really, but it had been a very long day. He could hear Rowlet's snores over the sink running. As Kukui gathered up the dishes, he thought about what the kid had said earlier, about Kalos. Something similar had probably occurred, and Kukui did know one of his contacts from Kalos after all. It was around 10 p.m. when he rang Professor Sycamore on the phone, then immediately asked about the Lumio City gym leader's contact info. When asked why, he simply said, "I just need to fact-check something." Clement answered the phone, apparently not planning on sleeping for a couple more hours. And Kukui didn't beat around the bush. "Clement, something happened today." "What kind of something? Is Ash hurt? Can I talk to him?" Clement's voice shook. "He will be all right, he isn't physically injured, but I need to ask you if anything like this has happened before." Kukui swallowed. "Today Pikachu fell off of a cliff, a very tall one, and he dived right after him, no hesitation, and something caught him, but he was seconds away from what could have been something bad." Clement swallowed, his breath shaky. "Professor, I am going to send you a link to a video. I can't properly put it into words, you just have to watch it." "Okay? Alright, thank you Clement, sorry to bother you." "Not a bother at all, good night Professor Kukui." Kukui pressed the end call button, and he was messaged a link around 2 minutes later. The caption under the video? "Crazy kid takes a leap off of Lumio's tower." And he clicked on it. And there Satoshi was, again, jumping after his Pikachu. Kukui couldn't stop watching, the horror that built up inside. He ended up covering his face at the desk, glasses discarded to the right of him, computer light making his eyes ache. He would have to discuss this with Satoshi. Ash was very content with the current situation. Pikachu, Rockruff, and Rowlet had gathered around him in a snuggle pile on the sofa. Pikachu's fur tickling his nose was the only thing keeping him from dozing back off. The sun was clearly shining in through the window and Ash found himself frankly surprised that Rotom hadn't woken him up yet. If anything, the only reason for him to get up would be? A loud gurgle erupted from his stomach. Arceus. He was hungry. He slowly sat up, careful not to wake the Pokémon. Yet his attempt was almost completely unsuccessful, the only one still asleep being Rowlet, enjoying the sun in a sleepy bird trance. He glances at the clock, it was noon. Way later than Rotom usually allows. He glanced over to the empty charging dock. Where was the odd little electric index? Ash climbed down the ladder, followed by his Pokémon as he searched for signs of the professor or Rotom. The television was off, so Rotom definitely wasn't in a locky wig. The entire house was empty. The kitchen seemed like it hadn't been touched since the night prior. He listened a little bit more, finally detecting some noise on the floor below. He took tired steps down the stairs, finally spotting the professor speaking to Rotomdex in an oddly serious manner. Alola professor, good morning, he greeted, still standing a couple steps up. Kukui jumped a little, Satoshi, I didn't realize you'd woken up. Good morning. I'm actually surprised Rotom didn't wake me up, the boy admitted, stretching a bit, what's going on? I just figured you could use the rest after that scare from yesterday. Kukui brushed it off. Oh. Yeah, hey. That? Sorry about that. Satoshi looked down, feeling a bit self-conscious again. You don't have to apologize, actually though. I'd like to talk to you. Are you in a good place mentally to talk about something more serious? The professor turned to him and Sato got a clear view of his face. He had bags under his eyes, and his usual glasses were put to the side. Sure thing. He finished the trek down the stairs and headed to a smaller chair next to Kukui, taking a seat while Rotom led the other Pokémon back upstairs. Though Pikachu remained on his trainer's shoulder. Kukui took a deep breath, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Satoshi, I saw something last night, and I'd like to hear about it from you if that's all right. He tapped around for a moment before turning the phone around. A nervous smile grew on the Cantonian boy's face. Oh, so you saw that? I can't believe that's still going around. Kukui exhaled, can you tell me more about this? 'Cause yesterday was obviously not an isolated incident. I guess that, when it's a matter of Pikachu, I would do anything to keep him safe. He's my buddy, and has always been my buddy, and will always be my buddy. If he wasn't here? I don't know, he scritched Pikachu under the chin. Heck, did you know on my first day with Pikachu, I was almost nearly killed by a bunch of Spearow, until Pikachu saved me. Guess I'm just returning the favor. He picked up the Pokémon on his shoulder, resting him on his lap. You used to hate me, remember? He laughed a bit. I had to tie you to a leash to get you to follow me. Pikapi, Chuchapika, Pikachu. Hey! I think you were the one being in but there. Kukui interrupted, so this kind of thing has been happening since the beginning of your journey? Pretty much I guess. Satoshi shrugged, I guess it's just my nature to jump into action to save my Pokémon, it's always been crazy. I have been through stuff, intense stuff I'll admit. Kukui nodded, folding his hands together, Satoshi, I just want you to know that I care about you. You know that right? Light brown eyes met dark brown ones as Satoshi recalled the night prior. He felt a twinge of embarrassment at the foggy memory of referring to the professor as Papa. I know. I really don't want to worry you but, I guess I can't help it. The professor stood, please, remember that there are others that care about you, just as much as you care about Pikachu, and that Pikachu probably wouldn't know what to do without you either. Pikachu. Pikachu agreed from his boy's lap, receiving warm scritches. Sato looked down, anywhere really but eye contact right now was good, okay, I'm sorry again, but I'll keep that in mind when I can. I'll try my best professor. Satoshi. Kukui's voice was soft, brown eyes looked back up, I believe in you, just try your best, it's all I could ever ask of you is to do the best that you can. Your best is always enough no matter what. Sato pushed back the emotions making his throat a bit scratchy and nodded as the professor opened his arms in an offer. Satoshi took it and hugged Kukui back, Pikachu snuggling between them both. Kukui smiled, now, how about some breakfast? Or well, brunch. Yes please. Okay professor, you are gonna kill me. What is it Mallow? We sort of lost him. What? The green-haired girl sighed, look I know we were on Ash sitting duty but we were distracted by shopping and he snuck off on an adventure, don't worry we know where he is, we just don't have an easy way there. The phone was put on speaker at Lily's request. Don't worry, Professor Kukui. He should be back by tonight, we can even tell you where to wait for him. That was the conversation that brought Kukui here, waiting on the beach outside the mall with his rarely used jeep, watching for the kayak to return from the island. Satoshi finally appeared in the distance, then slowly got closer until his tired arms were dragging the boat back onto the beach. The professor took it upon himself to lift the kayak up high, completely taking it out of the boy's hands. I think I can carry it the rest of the way. Thanks. Sato chuckled, stretching a bit. Kukui winced. The kid was sunburned to the distortion realm and back. Okay bud, after we return this we have to make use extreme speed and get ourselves home before you start feeling that. Brown eyes looked to him, confused, till I feel what? The sunburns? Kukui looked at him, appearing boggled. It was only then Sato realized his arms and legs were all crispy, and extremely hot to the touch. Oh, he trailed off. Usually someone was there to remind him to use sunscreen, either by him seeing them using it, or, in the case of Misty, May, and Iris, telling his dumb but to put it on. Today he didn't even bring sunscreen, and had none on him except for the usual bit he put on in the morning before heading out into the hot Alolan sun. The kayak was returned, and the nice lady thanked before they headed home. Once they returned to the beach house, the remedy was lots of aloe, hope, and ibuprofen. Ash idly kicked his legs as he glared at his half-done homework. Professor? Have you ever been burnt this bad? Not really, Kukui commented. I don't burn very easily, and I think I only ever got burnt once or twice, but even then it wasn't that bad. My best friends growing up though, they would get fried every summer, he chuckled. I may have an old photo somewhere that one of their sisters snapped. Kukui wandered over to the shelf and moved it a little so he could reach behind it. A small wooden box rested in his hands, creaking as he placed it down on the coffee table. Once the lid was taken off, he could see that the box was a mess. Kukui dug through old expired coupons, coffee-stained napkins with pen writing smudged into them, and some very old-looking hard candies. Finally, he pulled out a somewhat torn, worn photo. He sat down next to the kid so they could both see the photo better. A young Kukui with longer hair worn in dreadlocks had his arms around two other boys. To his right an extremely skinny, pale, but much taller boy stood, wincing at the touch to his red skin. To Kukui's left? There was definitely someone, but most of his upper body was torn off, almost hastily. Only a tuft of black hair remained visible in the photo, one of his burnt arms, and his bathing suit. Ash looked up at Kukui, who seemed a little lost suddenly. Who is that? Kukui blinked and swallowed. Oh. Well, that, he pointed to the blonde, tall boy, is my friend Moline. We are still best friends to this day. He's actually Sophocles' uncle. A grin grew on Ash's face. Oh. That's awesome. So was it his mom that took the picture? He questioned. Yeah, she was the one who actually remembered to wear sunscreen, he chuckled. What about that kid next to you? The Cantonian boy pointed at the ripped side of the picture. Kukui's small grin fell. That, was my other best friend, but we aren't too close anymore. Oh, Ash tapped his hand against his pencil. Sorry about that. Kukui stood, and lightly tapped his hat with a playful energy. Don't worry about it, kid, it happens sometimes. People grow apart. Yeah, I guess so, Ash trailed off. Let's get some more aloe on ya, and make sure you actually finish that homework and stop doodling on it. 5-3 yen. Sometimes, people grow apart. Other times, they're ripped away from each other. Satoshi's sunburn ached as he struggled to carry the big Stoutland. He was so much lighter than Sato had expected though, much lighter than a Pokemon his size should be. The Pokemon Center wasn't too much further. Litten anxiously hopped around his feet, mewing as she tried to get Stoutland to respond to her. Luckily, it wasn't busy there. Nurse Joy hurried Stoutland into an observation room, where Litten was anxious to follow, and decided to hurl an ember at the nurse once she refused to let her in. Could you have your Litten go back into her Pokeball? This seems like a stressful environment for her, an aiding nurse in training suggested. Actually, Ash sighed, this Litten isn't mine, she's just a friend. Joy continued the tests while Sato held the Pokemon in his arms, who allowed it, though still restless. For the record, she was only allowing this because the kid was tall enough for her to see in through the window. No other reason. Litten stared with worry. Why wouldn't he respond? Stoutland always gave some sort of response, even a little gruff bark would suffice. She wouldn't even care if he expressed disappointment in her move, she just wanted some indication that he was still. Still. Stoutland was very still. Though there was his long fur that slowly moved up and down, long labored breaths. The same fur she would snuggle into then fall into blissful slumber, enjoying the warmth. That warmth of home, family. Safety. It felt like years until the pink lady would let her in again. She hopped up to the table and gazed at her mentor, her idol. He snoozed heavily. She decided to join him. Satoshi gripped onto the handle of his umbrella. "Where's Stoutland?" Rotom beeped, perplexed as they had no concept of where he could have gone. Kukui looked down at Sato, whose eyes had the same question. In a low, quiet voice, he responded, "When Pokemon pass away, they often go somewhere to hide. They don't want those they love to see them like that." Litten wailed. The rain poured heavily. Her grief engulfed her entire aura. It made Sato even more solemn than before. He approached the couch, closing his umbrella. "Hey Litten, we brought something for you to eat." Her aura shot towards his, her sadness gripping him tightly. He almost wanted to reach out and take hold of it. Help reshape it towards happiness. But, "I'm sorry, I failed you, Sir Arlon. My master. My friend." "No Lucario, you didn't fail him, you didn't fail anyone, you are every much an aura guardian as he was." "Thank you, Satoshi." Lucario was gone. He'd cried, on and off for days. He'd needed to cry. Satoshi sat in front of her as she ignored the citrus berry he placed in front of her. "I am here for you, if you need something, anything. We all are here for you." It was days. Every day. She laid there? Stoutland used to lay here. Where did he go? Why did he go? She'd known, deep inside, for so long that her time with him was short. But why so soon? She stayed there, 'cause where else could she go? She felt so alone, and yet the boy was silent, unlike usual. It was a comfortable silence. He would sit with his back to her, his other Pokemon joining him. She did her best to ignore his presence. And the comforting warmth that began to grow in her soul again. That totally didn't exist. Definitely not. She laid there. She cried. She mourned. She was cold. But little by little, bit by bit, Litten was ready to feel warm again. She woke up in the boy's lap. He asked her if she wanted something to eat. Kukui smiled at the sight of the kids all playing with Sato's newest teammate. The Litten seemed awfully fond of battles with Rockruff too. She was eating well thankfully. Though her sadness would return some nights. When the winds blew cold and the rain pittered onto the window's glass. She would sit awake and gaze to the sky, up at the clouds. She would usually take a break from battles and training the next day. Though Satoshi is always there for her. He brings her food, warm blankets, and makes it very clear that he's always available for snuggles. Sato is a healer, he helps others heal. The tough thing about healers though, is that they can't really heal themselves. Sato idly kicked his legs that hung from the tall stool, lightly sketching in his new sketchbook. And by new, he means, around 9 months old. It isn't his fault he is anxious about starting a new clean sketchbook when it's so perfect and new. What if your first sketch is a did, then it feels like you have to fill that book up immediately to make up for it, or else it's just a nice clean book, with nothing but disappointment inside. Kinda like himself. Sato lightly snorted at the joke he'd made at his own expense as he continued to doodle out his roulette. Said Grassbird was snoozing soundly in the windowsill. Perfect opportunity to be used as a reference. He was actually quite happy with how it was turning out, it almost looked good enough to ink, if he just gave it a little more time. The screen door swung open. "Hey Ash, I brought home a surprise dash." The brown-eyed boy slammed the sketchbook shut and switched it out as quick as he could for his phone, quickly opening the messaging feature and clicking on whoever appeared first. Kukui stared for a moment, blinked, and seemed to disregard it. Thank Arceus, he really didn't need Kukui finding out he was an artist. Whenever people heard about that they would ask to see what he had, then immediately insult it. The last time he'd actually willingly shown someone his art was at that summer camp in Sinnoh actually. It isn't like Professor Kukui was gonna make fun of it, far from it. Ash was sure he would be encouraging. But something inside of him still told him to hide it away as soon as possible. Though Takashi and Kasumi had been supportive, Kasumi was also only a year older than him and at the same art level. Takashi was also an older brother to many siblings and probably had a script set up in his brain for what to say when he sees one of them color a picture. Kenji, however, was actually a great teacher. As an artist himself he was able to give Satoshi pointers that he wouldn't have even thought to try before. Haruka didn't really seem to care. She would shrug and say she thought it was neat. Art was never a primary focus of hers so she didn't care too much, though her brother Masato liked to draw alongside him. Hikari was a little bit ahead of where he was art-wise, and had a sketchbook of her own, though she was mostly into drawing little fashion ideas for contests, as well as many little piplups scattered across the worn, soaked and re-dried pages. Iris had caught sight of his book, and immediately bragged that her skills were better, to which she took it upon herself to draw all over his drawing to correct it. Sillin would throw him compliments here and there though. But that was probably a similar situation to Takashi as Sillin was pretty much his older brother too. Serena had found the book and flipped through the whole thing without even asking, then continued to obsess over the fact that he'd drawn her, even though he'd drawn Clement and Bonnie as well. It was embarrassing almost. He didn't like people to see him with the label of artist, he much preferred the label with less overall judgment and expectation. Pokemon Trainer. He looked up at Kukui. What kind of surprise? I got some awesome stuff for dessert. Kukui announced, some cookies, the kind that has the designs on them with dash. He almost stood on the stool, the ones you can only find at the grocery store. The oddly cheap, but addicting ones? Kukui pulled them out. Yeah. Yes. Ash slid off of the stool, subtly sliding the sketchbook into his bag. Would it be wrong to steal one now? The professor shrugged, already opening the obnoxiously loud plastic. It had one end open when Ash's phone rang. He snatched it off the counter to read the caller ID. It was Mom. Hey Mom, what's up? Hey Ash. I just was calling in advance to let you know my plane is landing this afternoon. Her voice was slightly muffled on the phone. Ash blinked. Okay, where? Melee Airport? Oh, a short silence. Why? For the open house of course. The Pokemon school is having a parents' day, right? Sheet. The paper Ash was supposed to be writing was 3 words on a crumpled piece of paper in his bag. Probably smudged to hell and back at this point. Right? Yep. I almost forgot that existed, almost. He forced an anxious laugh. Well, that's my boy I suppose, Delia trailed off. Anyhow, don't find yourself too surprised later on then dear. Thanks Mom, see you soon. Ash hung up and looked to Kukui. Why didn't you say anything about my mom coming? Kukui looked at him, perplexed. I did, 2 days ago. We were walking home from school together. Ash pursed his lips in thought, had he really said it then? Why didn't? I'm gonna kick Kiawe's butt in that battle tomorrow. I'm sure you will, but remember that you're Dash. He'd zoned out, so hyper-focused on the battle to come. He wasn't even actually listening. He really needed to work on that. Speaking of things he needed to work on. His paper was still crumpled up, but now had been moved to the coffee table by Pikachu. Pikapi, his Pokemon called out to him, irritably tapping his foot. Why did he ever agree to this? So Ash, I was wondering if you wanted to be a part of the open house project we have planned? Brown Eyes looked up to the near-identical cousin of Professor Oak. What can I do for you? I'd love to help. Ah, I knew you would. Now, we need your help because we want to have someone speak about their experiences as someone who came to Alola from somewhere else. Not to mention that you are our only current student from the Kanto region, where we have many regional variants from. I could definitely help out with that. Why was he such a people-pleaser? Hadn't know whether it was because it was a special job, just for him. Or if it was that he was technically family, since his cousin was a grandfather figure to him. He just had to put thoughts on paper. He could do that. His eyes wandered to the window that had a lovely view of the beach outside. Or he could do some training. Pikapi, yeesh, could Pikachu sense his aura? Fine. Sato grumbled, resting his head on his arms. Glaring back down to the paper. Okay. First. He'd grab a cookie. Then get back to work. How did he survive that? Satoshi was 300% sure Professor Kukui was about to humiliate him in front of everyone. He'd cheated, he freaked out and as a result just figured that having Rotom do it was the best way to solve his problem. But he hadn't, he just pulled Rotom out, shifted the tone to comedic, and joked about Rotom's excitement. Then he made it clear just how simple all of it was. Satoshi did it, he gave his ORL report, and it was just talking about how much he loved Alola. How did he ever think it was hard? Probably when a pencil and paper got involved. He hadn't gone to a legitimate school in a while. And back then, essays weren't his strong suit at all. He would rather stay up on his DS, playing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Or rather doodle the Pokemon that appeared on the posters that were lazily taped to his wall. He never finished them properly, he would give maybe 3% of his effort and bullshit the paper. Most of it was always filler words, or the same sentence rephrased several times. He was currently on the beach in front of the house, throwing around a rubber frisbee. Pikachu, Rockruff, and Rowlet were all about it. The puppy Pokemon would try to get leverage atop of Rowlet's head but would just end up knocking the both of them down. Then that left only Pikachu to give it an awesome catch as the victor. Though the playtime is fun, the best part of Alola? Satoshi. Dinner. Kukui waved from the front porch. "'Kay. Be there in a sec." Sato grabbed the frisbee before Rockruff could argue it belonged to him, and ran to the house. His bare feet were warmer inside than they were on the cool sandy beach, sand chilled by the evening sky. The meal smelled fresh and warm, and extremely cheesy. The best kind of course. The beach house was always a warm place to return to. It will always be. A plate was placed in front of him after he'd made sure each of his Pokemon got their own fill of dinner. There you go, Sato. Kukui placed a cup of milk next to the plate. Thank you, Papa. Satoshi responded, taking a bite as soon as possible. The silence that followed had him feeling very self-conscious. Oh goodness, after a long silence, his mother laughed a bit. Litten looking up at her from her lap, wondering why the scritches had suddenly stopped. I can see that my boy is closer with you than he leads on. Mum. Sato's entire face was red with embarrassment. Oh come on dear, no need to be embarrassed. She walked over to him, leaving poor Litten behind on the couch, who mewed in protest. You never did have someone like that and dash. Why, do we have to talk about this? Now. Sato placed his hands on his cheeks, dragging them down with a sharp inhale. Why not, she shrugged casually. Another big bite of food, cause I don't wanna now. Alright fine, don't talk with your mouth full. She smiled, I am only teasing dear. Satoshi finished his bite, yeah, I know Mom. So, would you fight a bunch of unknown to rescue him from an NTI? MOM. Lily's brother was scary. But, that wasn't really a bad thing. He wasn't scary like certain legendaries, or Kalos. He was a challenge. He really hadn't wanted to battle someone this bad since he met Alolan. His Lycanroc looked crazy strong, and he was sure Rockruff wanted to battle him just as much as he wanted to battle Gladion. Though, he only said he would think about it. And Ash accepted that. It was reasonable, he seemed to only want serious battles, no little bug catchers or youngster Joeys allowed. Though what really caught his interest that night was how he regarded Lily. Her car had screeched to a stop and she ran out, calling his name. Demanding that it was time for him to come home, and at least mend his clothes or something. He stubbornly and coldly refused. Though he still regarded her with warmth and kindness. He was happy that she could touch Snowy, he even said that he was very proud of her and how far she had come. There wasn't a hint of malice. At least, not towards his sister. But the second his mother was mentioned, he'd gone completely bitter. Why should I care about how SHE feels? She obviously doesn't care about my feelings. She doesn't care about me, or you, either of us. Lily got very angry. How would you know? You haven't been home in years. You haven't spoken to her in ages. That's why she wants you to come home. She stomped on the ground in anger. That isn't why she wants me home, he yelled back. An angry inhale came from Lily. Oh really? Why else would SHE want you home then? Gladion looked down, towards his belt that held his 3 Pokeballs. I can't tell you. Oh sure. You can't tell me anything, she huffed, ever. She looked down, I just want my big brother back. I'm right here, Lily. She met his eyes once more. Yeah, but you aren't really here, are you? She turned away with a huff, Snowy's tails flittering in the wind. Goodbye then, have fun on whatever journey this is supposed to be. She turned and walked away. But she didn't get back in the car. She sat on a nearby bench as the crowd dispersed. She pet Snowy's fluff atop her head while the ice-type cooed at her, patting up at her with a paw. Ash took a seat beside her. Siblings are tough, huh? She continued to gaze at Snowy's fluff. I guess so. It was a slightly comfortable silence. Do you have any siblings, Ash? Green eyes locked onto him. Well yes, but no. I don't have any that have my mom as their mom, but I have some friends that have been a lot like older or younger siblings to me. He sat up a bit, Pikachu climbing onto his lap. My older brother for most of my journeys was Brock. He followed me for 3 regions. As soon as I thought he left, he would just show up again? It's kind of funny, he chuckled. The guy has 9 actual younger siblings, so he was the resident big brother around. You know, scolding me for stuff like liking things I shouldn't and starting petty fights with my friend Misty. He leaned back, 10-year-old stuff. Lily seemed to relax a little with a giggle. Wow, honestly I'm not surprised that's what you did when you were 10. I also had Sillin. He was a cook but most of the time he just stopped me and my friend, he said the word like he was debating if it was true or not, Iris from killing each other. Iris and I fought a lot so he had his hands full. And I also have Max and Bonnie. They were too young to journey at the time but they stayed with their older siblings while they journeyed with me. He looked to Lily, so that's around 4 that were older or younger siblings. You have so many, I don't know what I would do with that many siblings, but in all honesty I end up feeling like an only child more often than not. I never see my brother, and when I do, well you saw, she scuffed her boot a little. I don't see them too often right now. Ash commented, but I have my memories with them, and I am gonna see them again, whether it be on a screen, or face to face. I know that I will see them again. Do you think Gladion is going to journey forever? Lily looked down. No, of course not. But it doesn't stop me from missing him, he doesn't even have a phone or anything, she breathed, I'm worried about him. After became unable to touch Pokemon, he just left. It was 4 years ago? I was 8, and he was 10. I didn't even get to say goodbye. I'm sorry, that must have hurt. Lily nodded. His seat at the table was empty, and Mother seemed tense and angry all the time. Then she sent me to Melee Island with Hobbs, and she stayed on Ether Paradise. I still don't know what happened between them because nobody will tell me. Well, that's kinda shitty of both of them. Who are they to keep this from you? Ash suggested, his sense of justice rising. Exactly. Lily raised up an arm. It's not fair. Both of them treat me like a fragile child that could break at any moment, but that isn't true. I am stronger than that. I just wish they could both see that. Voa. Snowy gave her an inspired look. Thanks, Snowy, I know that you know I'm strong. She hugged her Pokemon. Ash turned over to them in surprise. Their auras, they were mingling, weakly but still mingling in the same way his did with his Pokemon. Whoa, Lily. Look at you. Understanding Snowy like that. Oh, yeah, thanks. I have been working at it for a bit and it's not like I thought. We aren't saying words but, her emotions, her overall message. I feel it, sometimes it's clearer than other times but, I can understand her to some extent. I'm proud of you, he gave her a thumbs up. Lily smiled, all thanks to you, Ash. The comfortable silence resumed. So, tell me more about your older sibling you've had. Well, Brock is not only an older brother, he is also a massive simp. Sometimes we call him Brocker and he hates it, but that's sort of an inside joke about Pokemon Bocce or Dash. I'm so excited. Sophocles adjusted his vest, grabbing a laser gun. I haven't ever done laser tag before. Same here. I want to start right now. Ash agreed, fumbling with the equipment in his hands. Pika Pi. 1 SEC Pikachu. Ash was fumbling with a target device, attempting to get it to fit properly on Litten, who did not appreciate all the fumbling with the clips of the vest. Come on, Litten. It's so you can play with us. Don't you want to beat Rockruff? The card Pokemon was quick to turn around and sit, allowing her trainer to finish adjusting where her target was placed. Pikachu waddled over to his trainer with his arms out, Pii. His vest was a bit too big on him, still needing some adjustment for sure. Okay. Buddy, you're next. Ash pulled the straps on Pikachu's little vest until it fit like a glove. Choo! The yellow Pokemon squeaked in joy as he hopped onto his trainer's shoulder. Ash looked around, checking on the progress of his friends. Togedemaru had her vest on, but struggled to roll around in it. Steenie's vest was an easy fit. Mallow was now helping Lily with her own vest before assisting with Snowy's. Kiawe was hard at work, with his own vest on. The real struggle was Turtonator. T-Turt. Hey Ash, can you help me get the vest on him? He's a bit nervous and I need someone to hold onto the strap while I clip it so he doesn't activate his shell trap. Sure thing. The Cantonian boy walked over to assist, watching Mallow finish up assisting Lily with her vest. Soon, every trainer and Pokemon had a vest equipped, and trainers had guns to go along with them. The worker got up on the podium and called for their attention. Okay, everybody. Each of your targets can be hit for 50 points, and once they are hit you can't shoot for 1 minute. Each Pokemon target is 80 points, and they each have a 30-second cooldown after their target is hit. She pointed to the target on the center of a human-fitted vest. The target is on a different place depending on the shape of your Pokemon, but they should all be visible. And don't forget about the floating targets for you to aim for. Those can only be hit twice per game for 100 points. Look out for them. She looked them all over. Okay, it's team time. Lana and Kiawe were elected as team leaders so they wouldn't join forces and absolutely demolish everybody else. Ash teamed up with Lana and Lily. Mallow and Sophocles joined forces with Kiawe. The teams were assigned, Kiawe with red, Lana with blue. The lights lit up. 15 minutes on the clock. Go! The room was dark, but the bright neon lights were enough for Sophocles to not have to worry. At least mostly, he did hide behind Kiawe a little. The targets really did fly. The random flying type Pokemon-based targets would go by fast, and Kiawe had a good aim. Though Lily had an even better one, silently deactivating his gun by shooting his target, then running to hide with her 50 points. Lana was then free to shoot the target for a nice 100 points. Ash saw a target glowing in the darkness, and went to shoot at it, only just then realizing it was a bright blue target. He'd shot at Roulette, which didn't even do anything. Sorry buddy, he called out. Kukui, Roulette trilled, doing a 180 in the other direction. Then, KROW. Ha! 80 points, a gleeful laugh from the green-haired girl was heard behind a wall. Steenie. The first round ended with Team Blue in the lead, but there were still 2 to go. The second one had a much different course. It had a lot more inclines to climb up on, and less walls to hide behind. It wasn't long before the course took out one of them. Ash headed towards the red light, ready to shoot. though he hesitated when he realized that the red light was really close to the ground. He approached to find Sophocles on the ground, wheezing, gasping for air, weakly calling out for his Pokemon. Ash dropped his gun and yelled out as loud as he could, "Wait! Pause the game! Someone is hurt!" With that, Lily ran out the door to alert the administrator while Ash leaned down, slinging Soph over his shoulder. With Kiawe's aid as well, they were able to carry him out and set him on the bench outside. Togedemaru squeaking urgently at their feet. Soph wheezed, "Inhaler." Ash deciphered the word and recalled something about his Colosian gym leader friend. Clement heaved, leaning on his knees as he coughed. Every breath was a sharp wheeze. "Clement!" Bonnie ran over as he dropped his pack, the Apom arm falling out of it, limp. The young girl dug through the massive bag, tossing out slightly charred bits of scrap and random wires. "You need to be more organized," she exhaled, finally pulling out an odd tube and a small, L-shaped device, shaking it up and handing it to her brother. Clement accepted it, putting the device in the tube, then placing the end in his mouth. He pressed down on the top of the inhaler. A puff entered the spacer. An odd harmonica-like sound was heard and he inhaled. They all sat and waited while he caught his breath again. Once he found his voice again, he thanked Bonnie, before dropping it back into the bag. Clement, placing it into an easily reachable side pocket. Ash fell into a sitting position next to him. "You okay, Clem?" An encouraging arm was placed around the boy's shoulder. Blue eyes met brown, and quickly looked away, Clement's face turning red. "Why yeah, I'm okay. Thanks Ash, sometimes you guys just go too fast for me to keep up with." Ash bit his lip, he hadn't really been too conscious of that at all. Serena approached and handed Clement a water bottle. "Here, I had some issues when I was younger but I outgrew them once I started Rhyhorn race training. We can slow it down whenever you need us to." Clement smiled, patting the soft ears of Bunnelby, who had placed himself in his trainer's lap. "Thanks." Ash looked around for the cubby with Sophocles' bag in it, Togedemaru already over there, trying to pull it down. He rushed over, pulling it out of its spot, the round Pokemon trailing after him. He easily found the inhaler and spacer in the bag. Handing them both to Sophocles, who could only seem to nod. He took one puff of medication. Then two. Then a third even. Ash ran over to the vending machine to get a bottle of water. As he walked back, Mallow spoke up, "Wow, you really know what to do." "I have another friend with asthma," he explained, handing the water to his friend as his breathing calmed down, Togedemaru whimpering at the foot of the bench. "Do you guys not know what to do to help?" "Not really," Kiawe admitted. "It's usually Professor Kukui helping him out, or he is sent to the nurse and we go back to class activities. We honestly were never taught what to do in this situation." Lana trails off, a bit of guilt in her voice, though we probably should have asked. Sophocles finally found his voice. "Tease okay guys, I never told you too much cause it's kinda embarrassing." "There's nothing embarrassing about asthma." Lily chimed in, sitting beside him on the bench. Soph looked down. "I don't mean asthma itself. It's that I'm the fat kid with asthma," he sighed. "Everyone looks at me and assumes I am already gonna be slower just by my size, and even then I have trouble keeping fit with the asthma attacks slowing me down. It's some stupid endless cycle of disappointment." "Hey, there's nothing wrong with your body." Ash sat next to him. "I'll deck the next guy to make fun of you for that." He held up a fist with a snarky grin. "Most of your family, aside from your uncle, seems to have the genes that make you have a more difficult time losing weight. Not that you have to at all." He leaned back. "You genuinely love food, Soph, and I do too. Our bodies both have different ways of storing the fat and spending it. That isn't your fault, and you shouldn't be ashamed." "But, what if I slow everyone down?" He looked up at Ash. "Even if you do slow us down," Mallow began, "we'll wait for you." Sophocles' expression softened. "Are really?" "Of course." Lana brought out her calm enthusiasm. "What else are friends for?" All of Sophocles' friends surrounded him, encouraging words and smiles for miles. "What do we need to know to help you next time? Where do you keep your inhaler? What's the best thing I can do to help?" Sophocles smiled, petting the round top of Togedemaru's head, who had crawled up into her trainer's lap. "Thanks." Laser tag was back on, and Sophocles managed a good 100 points in the round, without having to climb any disabling platforms. Everyone understood, and it made it even more fun in the end. Ash was thrilled at first when he found out he would get to train with Snowy. He never really worked with ice types too often and she was new territory. Sure, he missed Pikachu, yeah. But, he loves Lily's place, and he loves Lily too. The Pokemon partner swap project was sure to be a breeze. Though, the thoughts of that didn't help much with sleeping that night. Snowy was cold as ever, laying on the couch, neglecting her food. He had noticed Litten, attempting to interact with her and get her to do anything at all. Yet, the ice type shied away. He laid there, wide awake all night, feeling like he should reach around. looking for something to hold onto. He hadn't slept with a plush toy since he was 8. Though, he hadn't slept without a warm and snuggly Pikachu since he was 10. He tossed and turned throughout the long night. At one point Rockruff had tried to climb into bed with him. The puppy Pokemon was very snuggly, but that wasn't exactly the best thing for rest, especially with how sharp his many rocks were and how squirmy he was. Rowlet wasn't the snuggly type either, at least not at night. The nocturnal Pokemon trilled and flew around often in the night. Litten still preferred to rest on the bottom level, her spot on the couch right beside the window. Satoshi felt really alone right now. So, very restless. And anxious. His anxiety carried until the next morning where Kukui noticed how absolutely exhausted Satoshi looked. He'd asked if the kid was feeling well. Only getting an eh and a shrug in return before the kid took a big bite of the waffles Kukui had placed in front of him. He turned to his side with a smaller cut bite, offering it to the non-existent Pokemon next to him. Right, he uttered. Pikachu wasn't there to share waffles. The professor turned his attention to the Vulpix in the corner, swishing her tails. He walked over with a meal he had prepared, looking much different than what he had given the other Pokemon. The Vulpix actually perked up at the smell, but saw who was delivering it and turned her head away in a huff. Snowy refused to eat a single bite. How dare the professor give her the usual breakfast Lily made for her? That was Lily's job. After a half hour of trying to get her to eat, and failing, Kukui suggested Satoshi should go outside and get some training done with his Pokemon. Satoshi brightened a little at the idea of that. Training did sound fun. Okay. We'll be outside. He ran out with his 3 Pokemon and Rotomdex in tow. It was off to a great start, strengthening Litten's Fire Fang against Rockruff's Rock Throw. Rowlet throwing in wild cards of Razor Leaf in there as well. Alright. Now Pikachu, Iron Tie Dash, all the Pokemon halted at that, looking to him in confusion. He'd forgotten. Again. Why was it so hard to remember that Pikachu wasn't there? A sudden fear engulfed him. No, Pikachu was there, just not here. He was safe, with Lily, nowhere else. Pikachu was fine, so Satoshi was too. He gave a small grin. Sorry guys, he laughed, back to training. The Pokemon didn't do as well after that, matching their trainer's energy. It was dinner time again. Satoshi had a simple task, chop the onions while Kukui got the Slowpoke tails. Every thought was Pikachu. He couldn't stop thinking about his partner. Kukui had made a fresh meal for Snowy, who rejected it once more. Satoshi figured he could try again. After all, this was a partner swap project. She was supposed to be his partner for the weekend. It was Saturday evening. They still had one more whole day left. He abandoned the onions Kukui had asked him to chop for now, approaching Snowy. Hey Snowy. I know you miss Lily. But I know she would want you to eat. A small icy huff was the only response. Satoshi took a deep breath. Okay, it was time to try Aura. He silently reached out for her aura, and the aura reacted in a sharp kind of fear, smacking his away. He flinched away. His aura instinctively reached out for Pikachu, and he was just gone. Gone. His aura searched, reached out, but it was too panicked to go far. He needed to calm down and oh. Where was Pikachu's aura? His aura is supposed to be there, but it's not, like it vanished, like. Pikachu fell to the ground. Hey, we did it? What's wrong dash? He gathered the yellow mouse Pokemon in his arms. Copy, his Pokemon. Turned to stone. Died in his arms. His aura flared up in panic, snatching hold of every living thing around him. Litten, Rowlet, and Rockruff yowled in the sudden anguish that filled their aura. Rotomdex began to malfunction, their screen turning to static, forcing them out of their Pokédex. Snowy sharply turned around and blasted the strongest powder snow she could muster at Satoshi. He could withstand the heat. He got blasted with flamethrowers all the time. But the cold is suffocating. The panicked aura that shook the Pokemon suddenly disappeared. Snowy calmed. It was all okay. Then the aura returned, more afraid than ever. Litten yelled, doing her best to walk to him while she wailed. No. Sato held his head in his hands, his entire body shaking. No. Too cold. Lid dash, she stepped towards him. No. In your Pokeballs. He ripped the Pokeballs off his belt and recalled all his caught Pokemon into them. Though it was only a matter of seconds before they all forced their way out of them. No. You're all gonna freeze to death. Please. Listen to me. Just because I'm gonna die doesn't mean you have to freeze to death too. Snowy looked up at him fearfully. Kyo, dash, she hesitantly moved towards him. Brown eyes flooded with hot tears. Gomen ne, he sobbed, stepping back. Sini taku nai, he had his hands up against the counter. Snowy took another tough step towards him. Satoshi tried to get away, turning roughly to the side. The knife on the counter was roughly tossed, clattering to the floor. He screamed. Bright red began to leak out from a large cut on his arm. He fell to his knees, he watched the blood leak out of the cut. He sobbed. It was your average grocery trip. Kukui slightly struggled with the bag of uneven weight that threw off his balance. He'd gotten what he needed, and a little something extra, that he'd hoped would convince a stubborn Vulpix to eat. However, as soon as he was within 50 feet of his house, one of his Pokeballs came open with a bright glow. Lookerg, the Lucario turned to her trainer, seeming oddly serious. She wasn't the type of Pokemon to be all about business, in fact he often had trouble getting her to focus and keep her head in the game during battles. What is it, Lucario? He questioned, noticing her aura sensors rising on her head. She began to run to the house. Kukui had a sinking feeling in his stomach as he ran, trying to keep his groceries afloat in his arms. Once he was 20 feet away from his porch, he could feel it, it was bad. It was terrifying, it shook him to his core. This fear. What was it? He fell to a knee, trying to regain the wind that had been knocked out of him. Why was he so suddenly afraid? What was there to fear? Lucario's paw fell upon his shoulder. He found peace again. He could see the energy in her paws, transferred between the two of them. He could feel her emotions clearly, her intent. Kin. Danger. Calmed. She took her paw back, and he remained close to her as they made their way to the beach house. Kukui swung the door open to see that all hell had broken loose. Every Pokemon around was in obvious pain, Rotom's Pokédex was on the floor and they were buzzing about the room. Satoshi was on the ground, wailing. Blood was going down his arm and falling to the floor. A knife on the floor. Snowy cowering next to it. Kukui turned to Lucario who seemed confused, looking around for something or someone. She eventually figured out where to look and approached the boy on the floor. She sat next to him and placed a paw on his shoulder. Satoshi was lost in his own aura. It hurt. It all hurt so bad. Then, a soft, warm aura invaded his own, cutting it like the knife that had cut his arm open. He shied away from it, but it slowly took over his own, it struggled slightly for dominance, before completely engulfing his aura. It was soothing. Calming. He could feel the communication from the aura. She had thought, he was a Riolu, everything was going to be okay, he just had to release his aura, let her help. He released his hold on the aura around him, letting it dissipate as she shared her aura with his own. He was able to find himself within his aura and draw it back to himself. Brown eyes opened to red ones that had a matching gentle grin, and an awful pain in his arm. Professor Kukui was instantly at his side, examining the wound. He grabbed a Pokeball from inside his lab coat and sent out a Pokemon. Braviary. Get the first aid kit. Lucario. Get some warm water on a towel. Sato looked down. Satoshi, what happened? Are you okay? A sniffle and a whimper. Sato. It was an accident. I promise. I'm sorry, Papa, he sniffled. I was so scared and I backed up and it fell down, and it hurt me, there's blood, and it hurts. It was cold. So cold. Crocodile tears rolled down his cheeks as Braviary returned, dropping the kit beside Kukui, Lucario also returning with a towel. Hey, Satoshi, it's alright? It's okay, buddy, just let me see your arm. The boy's arm shook as he lifted it over to show the professor. Kukui winced a little and grabbed the warm towel, cleaning up the red on his arm. Then he opened up the kit to grab some disinfectant, dabbing it on a towelette. Okay, this is going to hurt a bit, but it's gonna help it get better, understand? The brown eyes shut tight, he nodded, KK. It hurt him inside to hear Satoshi whimper at the sting. He cleaned it as quickly and as efficiently as he could, before going back in for some sheet. They were out of bandage wrap. They had a few bandages themselves, but they wouldn't cover up the cut effectively. Lucario. Grab me the paper towel roll. He folded up several paper towels and secured them with 3 of the bandages. Sato, I need to go and get bandage wrap for your arm. Okay? The kid looked like he was about to start sobbing again. No. Why? Stay. He began to stand. I need to get these to properly keep your cut safe. You stay here, Lucario and Braviary will take good care of you. No. Satoshi stood and grabbed onto the lab coat with a vice grip, please. No. Don't leave me, Papa. Don't leave me alone. Don't go, he sniffled again. Please don't go, Papa. The kid was shaking, his voice strained. His hands gripped to the grounding lab coat. Kukui looked down to him. Okay, you can come with me. Just be very careful with your arm. Understand, buddy? Sato nodded his head in response, even a little too much, giving him slight vertigo. Kukui patted his head. Okay, buddy, before we go, can you tell me how old you feel? Sato looked down at his hands, moving his fingers up and down, counting them. With a little consideration he held up 8 fingers. The professor nodded. Okay, he looked to his Pokemon, make sure everyone else is okay and try to get Rotom into their Pokédex. Braviary let out a proud cry, and Lucario offered an affirmative growl. Musashi squinted as she squatted down, gazing at the many different medication brands. Her messy bun complementing her sweatpants and short-sleeved hoodie. She didn't wear this outfit often, but it was a sick day exclusive. The Rocket Trio had been feeling under the weather lately. Musashi just so happened to be feeling the healthiest out of the 3, so she stuffed a bunch of pillows in her cot and snuck out of headquarters while Beware was out. Though she was careful to watch her back as the overbearing Pokemon could be back at any moment. Yeesh, where's the store brand? She groaned, pressing a couple fingers to her temple in irritation. She almost froze in place when a familiar white lab coat walked right by her. She looked downwards as she peeked to them out of the corner of her eye. There he was, following the professor, holding his hand? The Yari boy looked very tired, and was behaving a bit more shy than normal. They had entered the aisle that contained the first aid supplies, and the beauty of Team Rocket definitely noticed the makeshift cover-up on the kid's arm. They'd exited the aisle with a few large rolls of bandages, and they got in line to check out, obviously in some sort of hurry. For some unholy reason, while they were in line, the kid let go of the professor's hand, and his eyes stared right at her. She hid her face as much as possible, anxious as the kid approached. Her internal monologue just begging, "Don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me," over and over again. By an amazing slide of luck he passed her right by and approached a display next to her. It had many plush Pokemon, most of them Alolan native, and a few large Pikachu on top. Wait. Where was the Yari boy's Pikachu? His shoulder was bare, and the Pokemon wasn't anywhere nearby. That was extremely odd, just enough to make her anxious. Then it seemed to click. He was just standing there, looking up at the Pikachu plush. As if, unsure. She felt more uncomfortable the longer he stood there, so she figured that she may as well try to shoo him off. So she adjusted her voice, the actress she was, "You like Pikachu, twer kid?" He wore an anxious frown on his face, looking at her with interest. I guess. I have one. You're looking at that plush even though you've got one of your own?" she asked, picking up a random bottle on the shelf. He looked down. "I dunno, I miss my Pikachu, he swallowed, wiping at his eyes, isn't at home for the rest of the weekend." A sigh of relief escaped her chest that she wasn't aware was being held in. "Well, you do like it, don't you?" "Yeah, I do." He looked back to the display. "Then why don't you get it?" she suggested. He looked back over to her, smiled and nodded, then reached up for the Pikachu plush. Once it was secure in his arms, he couldn't seem to resist giving it a test hug. Once positive, he rushed back over to the professor, tugging at his lab coat to get his attention. The Alolan man gazed down to see what the boy had. A smile fell upon his face. He patted the kid's head with a nod. They left with the Pikachu. For once, she was happy to see the kid leave with a Pikachu. Sato sat down on the couch, holding his new comfort object close. His Pokemon surrounded him, concerned. The bandages on his arm did a better job than the paper towels did, securely wrapped around it. The thing that helped the most was the big lab coat wrapped around him from his papa. A little too big for him to actually wear, so for now it worked well as a blanket. Sorry guys, didn't mean to hurt you all." His legs kicked, back and forth as he rocked himself a little. "Really didn't mean it, please don't be mad." Litten nuzzled his hand, a rare affectionate action from her. Rockruff lightly wagged his tail, Rowlet lightly trilled and gently groomed Satoshi's hair. Their auras were all calm, and they definitely forgave him. Rotom made it abundantly clear as they zoomed over, explaining that they were 100% fine and that there was no need to worry at all. A happy emoji appearing on their screen. Satoshi smiled and nodded, petting Litten and listening to her soothing purr. A waft of the meal being cooked in the kitchen made his stomach grumble. Papa was almost finished with dinner. He'd also offered hot chocolate and movies after, which Sato was very excited for. Once dinner was served, eaten, and greatly enjoyed, they settled in for some movies and hot chocolate. Things were finally starting to feel okay. By the time the movie had passed, Sato was almost asleep, leaning up against his papa, eyes fighting to stay awake. Kukui rubbed his shoulder and got his sleepy attention. "How old are you feeling, Keiki?" He mussed the kid's hair up a bit. Sato yawned a bit, looking upwards in thought for a moment. "I'm feeling bigger now," he affirmed, looking up at his papa. "Sorry I was so much trouble." "Don't worry about it, Keiki," Kukui replied softly. "I'm sorry I assigned this swap project. I didn't realize how much it would affect you. I should have asked if you guys were okay with it first. That was on me." Vul. The icy Vulpix had wandered back into the living room and gazed up at the two humans. "Vua, Pix," she swished her tails, an apology. It's alright Snowy, this weekend has been hard on us all. He patted beside him and the Pokemon hopped up next to him. I'm glad you've managed to connect with Snowy though. Kukui commented, I'm proud of you and Snowy. Though, can I ask what happened earlier? Sato slowly placed a cautious hand in her hair fluff, petting the ice type, gathering up his words. I tried to get her to eat, and I guess I kept on thinking about Pikachu, and she wasn't listening with words, so I reached out with aura and, I guess mine went out of control when she used an ice-type move on me. Kind of, trapping me in a scary memory? I kind of thought I was going to die, and then I accidentally knocked the knife off the counter dash. He looked up at Kukui who was eyeing him with a sort of unbelievable shock. Sato began to backtrack, but I was fine. I didn't die. I was safe, eventually. I'm okay now. See? Kukui closed his eyes and shook his head. Satoshi, the fact that you became trapped in that memory alone signifies that you were not okay after that. He adjusted his glasses, and for that matter, what do you mean about aura? Like what Lucario uses, he recalled how it was Lucario that had to bring the situation back under control. I sort of inherited a Lucario's aura-like, he seemed to count in his head. 3 years ago? Since then I've been even more of a legendary magnet than I was when I started my journey, and have been able to communicate with Pokemon almost seamlessly. It just comes completely natural. I can manipulate aura. I can change my own aura, and even change others' auras, manipulate them. He paused. I know it sounds super weird and dumb, but... He looked down at his Z-ring. I am supposed to be some kind of aura guardian and I don't think I'm ready for that kind of responsibility at all. Satoshi, brown eyes looked away, cheeks turned red in embarrassment. I know it's ridiculous. No, I think it's a spectacular thing about you. You are practically part Lucario, that's wow. He recomposed himself. Are you doing okay? A nod was given in response. The plush held tighter in his arms. Papa? Yes Keiki? I don't think I'm okay. It's okay to not be, a lot has happened to you. Kukui took off his hat and placed it on the coffee table. Can I have a hug? He asked, already shifting towards him. A warm smile, of course Sato, open arms were waiting for him and he was held. He was safe and he was warm, and he felt just a bit happier. After a few minutes' silence, the professor spoke up. Has anyone ever brought up the possibility of going to a therapist before? I think having one could be really useful for you, to help you heal and get better. Maybe even some medication if they think you need it. Satoshi shifted in his hold, getting more comfortable. Well, when I got back from Kalos, my mom was talking to Professor Oak. He said something about therapy, and my mom said that she didn't think it was a good idea, that I would spill too much and be sent off to some evil Pokemon lab or something. I wouldn't let that happen Keiki. Kukui reassured, musing Sato's hair once more. And a therapist isn't supposed to share your information with anyone unless you give your permission. They can get you on some medication that can really help you feel better too. So, I can be back to normal again. He looked to his papa for an answer. Kukui adjusted his glasses. Well, the therapy and medication won't cure you, they can't magically make you all better, and you may never feel 100% like you did before. Satoshi looked down. But it definitely helps, there are less bad days and your quality of day-to-day life is greatly improved, they can help you start to heal. I think that I'm ready to start feeling better again. Sato exhaled. Yeah? So we can find you a therapist? MMHM. Kukui smiled with warmth. Great, we can get right on that tomorrow morning. By the way, I was wondering, how long have you had a Braviary and a Lucario? Kukui chuckled. Funny story, he'd be fine, as long as he evaded any mention of battle royals. So, I'm actually strong trainer for a Pokemon professor, and I don't want that idea to mix into my teacher identity, so I don't really show my Pokemon to many people. Okay, I won't tell anyone. Satoshi offered a warm grin back. Sometimes people need a little help before they can begin to heal. Rockruff was having a really hard time, and by extension, that meant Ash was also having a hard time. The puppy Pokemon had been more aggressive with his toys lately, and had been gnawing the furniture, leaving teeth marks in almost every impressionable surface in the house. He had also taken to stealing the other Pokemon's food. Much to specifically Rowlet's dismay, who was a bit too much of a wimp to stand up to him. It was a full 24 hours that Rockruff was gone. He'd run off while Ash was training with the others. He'd grown worried, and told Kukui. The professor grabbed some big flashlights, a bag of Pokemon treats, and Rockruff's favorite, not yet destroyed, squeaky toy. They walked the roads near the woods and called and whistled for him. No response. Pikachu and Rowlet also offered assistance, the electric mouse communicating with a pack of Deden via sparking cheek pouches, and Rowlet flying up to any bird Pokemon he caught sight of. Though, there was still no sign of the missing Pokemon. After a few hours, their voices had grown weary, and the class group chat was silent as everyone was either asleep or had no luck where they were either. They'd gone home and put out a notice about a missing Pokemon. The next day, Rockruff came to them in the form of Nurse Joy. The pink-haired woman had a sweet smile, handing over the puppy Pokemon. He wagged his tail and jumped right into Ash's arms. The Cantonese boy's body flooded with relief. Rockruff liked his face and borked, wagging his fluffy tail. Ash sat next to him as he ate his breakfast, not even touching Rowlet's food this time. He didn't bother to wonder what happened to make the Pokemon less hostile overnight, but he wasn't complaining. That was until Rockruff gave him something to complain about. "Satoshi, can you help me with these boxes?" Kukui called from the kitchenette. "Sure." Sato stood up quickly, shaking off his vertigo and running to assist Kukui. "What are?" Satoshi huffed. "These anyhow?" He strained to pick up a big box. "These are a bunch stuff that I had stuffed in my desk at school. They are just in the way, so I put them in these boxes." He swapped the struggling boy's box for a lighter one. "Okay, but where are you gonna keep these?" "I figure there's gotta be room in the attic crawl space, and it not there, then we can put it in the storage room dash." Litfu, a loud cry echoed out, and the unmistakable sound of a fire-type move being shot off. Just as fast, a loud bark followed, completed with rocks being tossed all around in an erratic fashion. The boxes were dropped on the counter, and all eyes were on the fighting Pokemon. Rowlet and Pikachu were huddled away in the corner, protecting their meals from the flames. Litten's tail was puffed up in a defensive position, and she was hissing. Rockruff growled at her, whining as little as he stepped back. Ash frowned. This wasn't good. Litten and Rockruff, despite the other issues as of late, had been good friends, sparring partners, dining pals, and even nap buddies. They would snuggle into each other's fluff and warmth respectively after a good battle. But this was not any kind of training or playful fighting. They never battled in the house, and Litten seemed shocked and afraid. Rockruff seemed even more so. Kukui carefully approached, letting Rockruff sniff him before he picked him up. He slowly walked to where Litten sat on the couch. After a few minutes of silence, Litten's eyes never leaving Rockruff, she approached, slowly sniffing in his direction. Kukui spoke in a quiet voice, "See? That's your buddy." "Meow. Ruff." The humans and other Pokemon made loud astonished noises at what Rockruff had done. Suddenly, he jumped over and viciously bitten the fire-type. Litten was placed up in the loft with bandage wrap and a potion sprayed on her arm. Meanwhile, Rockruff was left on the bottom floor, so they were separated in order to avoid any other possible violence. Ash pulled out his Pokeball and recalled Rockruff. The Pokemon was called into the ball securely. So we definitely have the right Pokemon." Kukui mused as the rock type popped back out of the ball. "What's wrong with them? What did I do wrong?" Satoshi caught himself. He wasn't supposed to jump to that right away. That's what his therapist had said. Not everything is your fault, and even if it is, that's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. You didn't do anything wrong. Kukui knelt down beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his head. "I'm looking into it, and there have been Pokemon in similar situations before." He stood up, grabbing his laptop and taking a spot on the floor next to his kid. He shook the mouse, awakening the screen. It was a forum where professors shared their studies and findings, and this question had a couple results. That's quite the question. It's not a too common occurrence, however, based on the fact that this Pokemon was gone for a day. There is a chance that he doesn't recognize his friend. There have been cases before like this. Once a Skitty and an Azurill who were great friends suddenly got into intense spats after the Azurill had gotten lost. It had run into a wild Skitty that looked almost identical, and mistook it for their friend. It reacted in hostility, placing the Azurill on guard around her friend. The trainer had to reintroduce the two Pokemon to each other. He will remember his friend soon enough. Kukui switched to another tab, outlining how to introduce territorial Pokemon to each other on a team. This should help us get their friendship back on track. Sato exhaled as he read through the article with poorly drawn images. "I hope so." "Okay, so should we put Litten's blanket on Rockruff's bed?" Kukui smiled and nodded. "That sounds like a great place to start." It had been a rough start, but Litten and Rockruff had improved, at least enough to tolerate being near each other, but they were nowhere near friends like they were before. They weren't quite there yet. The boat ride to Akala Island was enough to take his mind off the situation at least. There was this happy joy that leaped into existence when the sun shined on his face and warmed his dark hair, tanning his skin as bits of water flew around him. Tiny droplets splashing onto his face. Pikachu's ears blew in the wind as he smiled, idly letting his tail be caught by it as well. Chaya. Mallow and Lana sat together, swiping through filters to put over their picture of Steenie and Poplio posing together. Lily adjusted her sun hat while Snowy sat on her lap, enjoying the breeze. Sophocles ran by her chair, chasing Togedemaru down the deck. Kiawe had his eyes looking out onto sea, the waves crashing below the ship as the boat began to jump up and down on oceanic bumps. "Hold on, guys." Kukui called out from the wheel. Lily, shaken from the jolts, decided to place one hand on the handrail and the other tightly onto her Pokémon. Sophocles was now chasing the bouncy ball of Togedemaru, while Steenie spun around in dizzy circles. Lana and her partner Pokémon continued to scroll through filters unbothered, while Rolette perched at the front of the ship, cooing away at every bounce. Thankfully, the ocean had calmed down by the time the boat arrived at Akala Harbor, and yeah, Olivia tripped off the boat, but it made this a truly authentic Akala experience. Kiawe had previously commented to Ash that if Olivia didn't trip over her own feet at least once per hour, then it probably wasn't Olivia. They'd gotten ice cream at a local stand before they planned to head to the Pokemon Center for the evening. Ash passed out the ice cream bowls, each of them safe for each Pokemon of course, to his team, before sitting down with his own. Rockruff and Litten kept their distances as they ate, per usual, occasionally glancing at each other. As Ash watched, a knot of worry grew again in his stomach. Though, a sticky-faced Pikachu jumping on his shoulder was a welcome distraction. "Ah! Pikachu," he chuckled as the Pokemon rubbed his sticky face against his trainer's face. "Hey! I'm not your napkin you JRK. Pika-pee-thai." Pikachu giggled, a bit of static sparking up Ash's hair. "Now my face is caramel-flavored." He took another bite of his own ice cream. Pikachu swung his head a bit to the quiet sound of the song on the radio that played through the outdoor speakers. "Pai pai ka chuka," he liked a bit of the caramel off his trainer's face. "It does not taste better on my face." "Pika," he shrugged, relaxing himself on his trainer's shoulder. A voice nearby chuckled. Ash turned his head to see it was Olivia, whose ice cream was about to fall to the ground, her Lycanroc beneath her watching intently, just waiting for it to fall for an extra treat. Somehow, she managed to save it with minimal mess as she whipped around, using laws of physics to somehow rescue her scoop of Share Rim Cherry ice cream. "Is this seat taken?" "Nope." He scooted over a bit, to give her some room. She took her seat and closed her eyes with a happy hum. "I think it's amazing how you handle such a large Pokemon team. I could never have this many Pokemon on me at once, not all the time." She took a bite out of her waffle cone. "I've always had a big team, I guess. Pretty much since I started traveling back when I was 10. He shrugged. "Well, I commend you, Ash, you definitely handle them well." I dunno, I wouldn't say I handle them well, they're having issues lately, especially Rockruff." He looked over to the Pokemon in question, still scarfing down his treat. "He's acting so weird, and I know Pokemon change a lot, especially after big things happen, or about to happen to them." He cleared his throat. He paused, coughing quickly. "Professor Kukui said that he is probably preparing to evolve soon. Though I hope it doesn't ruin his relationship with the rest of the team, or," he sighed, leaning back on the bench of the picnic table. "Ruining his relationship with me. I've had Pokemon go from loving to just plain mean before. I don't think I'm ready for that to happen again." Olivia nodded. "I understand that feeling. In fact, I had similar issues with this one when she was a Rockruff too." Ash gazed at the midday Lycanroc, whose tongue hung out of her mouth, and whose gaze had absolutely nothing going on. Elevator music for sure. The only thought she was having was probably Olivia's melting ice cream. "Really?" "Yep," she got pretty aggressive, and even ran off for a bit. "She came back to me, fully evolved and loyal as ever. She's a bit of a rougher fighter than she was before, but she is still the same lovebug as ever." Lycanroc rested her head in the space between the boy and Kahuna on the seat, whining with her tail wagging. Ash smiled and pet her head. "I know that evolution isn't a bad thing, it's often a big part of how a Pokemon grows up, and with Rockruff, I know he is worth the work. All your Pokemon are, especially with a trainer like you, Ash." She tossed the last bit of her melting cone into Lycanroc's waiting mouth, much to her enjoyment. "I look forward to our battle." Ash smiled, looking up at her. "Me too, thanks Olivia." The Stoutland scavenger hunt had been the most fun Ash had in a while. Even though he lost, bad, very bad. Rotom thought that the words of comfort about the value of these shards to certain collectors would make him happier about his treasures. They didn't. Though it had still been fun, and that's what mattered. It was a nice day to have to begin the Akala Island field trip. Ash retired to his room after a big congratulatory dinner with Lily on her achievement of getting atop Stoutland's back. Kiawe was outside training with Turtonator, and Sophocles was still enjoying his dinner. He released his Pokemon in the room, letting them all find a comfy place when he realized Litten had yet to leave her Pokeball. She hadn't even come out to eat. He tossed up her ball and let her out, but she remained inside, refusing to exit. "Litten, what's wrong?" he muttered, rubbing his thumb gently over the Pokeball. It wasn't long before the other Pokemon noticed something was amiss. Rowlet and Pikachu cooed at the ball, hoping to get Litten to emerge. No luck. Ash was about to go and get Kukui when the unexpected occurred. Rockruff was sniffing at her Pokeball, batting it with his paw. He let out a low whine. A moment of silence passed and Litten finally emerged in a red light. She looked tired and distant. Ash slowly approached and slid her bowl of food over to her. She turned away from it and laid down. What was Rowlet? Sheet, right. He'd been on a Stoutland's back all day. Litten was still healing. Rockruff made a move towards Litten, and in a panic, Ash reached out to grab him, but to his relief and surprise, Rockruff only nudged her with his nose, giving her a few good sniffs. She slowly turned her head to him, and let a low meow escape her, shifting her position to make room for the puppy Pokemon. Rockruff slowly laid beside her, snuggling up to his friend. Ash felt his shoulders relax. Everything was gonna be okay. Back on the boat. So much had happened in that trip to Akala, though all his mind could think of to do was watch the light reflect off the water. He was shoved out of his trance quickly however, as his newly evolved Dusk Lycanroc jumped up onto him, nuzzling into his neck, and giving him a massive lick on his face. Laughter escaped Ash's mouth as he lightly pushed him down. He glanced around the boat, taking note of Kiawe trying to keep his new Marowak from getting into a fight with his reflection. He glanced to his new Z crystal he had gotten from Olivia, sitting proudly on his Z ring. She was right. Things had gotten scary for a bit. Rockruff bit Rowlet, and then he disappeared, and Ash had gotten so overcome with worry. But here Lycanroc was, happy to be with him. He didn't dislike his trainer at all. In fact it was quite the opposite, and even Litten was adjusting well to the new amount of fluff to lay on top of for a good rest. Ash closed his eyes, and hummed. Everything was okay, things get bad sometimes, but there is always a way to get through. He looked over at his Pokemon, Rowlet resting on top of Lycanroc's head, trilling happily as the rock type howled with joy. He loves his Pokemon and they love him. That's all that really matters.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.